What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto is weak and helpless in the forest of death in the Chunin exams? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. In the forest of death, Kiba couldn't help but shake his head a bit as he, Akamaru, Shino, and Hinata moved on to make it to the tower as they already had their own scrolls to enter the place. The young Inuzuka couldn't help but remember the words spoken by the stranger named Fenrix. I can't believe that Naruto has that kind of power. Who would have thought he'd have that? It is odd that Naruto never had that power back in the academy, but my destruction bugs panicked greatly when they sensed that power. I guess, but how the heck does he have a bloodline? He certainly never showed it back in the academy. Hinata was silent for the most part, but she couldn't help but wonder what the future was for her longtime crush. She hoped that he would be fine and would soon make it to the tower as he had done so much to make it this far, and to not make it would really hurt him. Her thoughts then wandered to the stranger who was there with Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke at the moment, but for now, her team had to worry about getting to the tower. They were not the only ones, as Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji were moving along, as well as the team of Lee, Neji, and Tenten. As they made their way to the tower, they couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold for them as they were getting closer to being Chunin, while they thought of what will happen when they would meet with Naruto and the members of his team. Shikamaru had to admit that he had thought that Naruto's team would be easy to deal with even with Sasuke present. Now he was happy he didn't push through with that idea. Meanwhile, at a clearing, Naruto looked at the ruins that were once his favorite clothes and was not the least bit happy at the moment, and it was understandable as he didn't have any spare clothes to use at the moment and had been given a spare shirt by Fenrix. The young man in question was hauling a pair of massive tigers that appeared to be dead with their necks broken. And the three genin could only watch with some queasiness how the man methodically skinned the dead animals and began to cook the meat. Fenrix looked at the three and spoke. You three can relax for now, you have had a very busy day and you need to get your strength back as much as you can. Naruto couldn't help himself and spoke. Who are you exactly? Fenrix grinned at that and replied. I suggest you three get some food in your stomachs before we talk about the past. You'll need the energy for the mission of getting the scroll you need at the moment. And you still have one scroll to keep safe. So I doubt that fighting on an empty stomach is a good idea. The growling stomachs of all three genin convinced them that he was right, and they dug into the cooking meat. And while they were not big fans of eating tiger meat, the food was at least good to the taste buds and worth eating at the moment. Naruto and Fenrix, however, were eating like mad as they ate as much food as they could get, surprising both Sasuke and Sakura. The two were finally eating enough meat to feed at least 6 people, and the two could only look on in wonder. As soon as the two placed aside their plates, both gave explosive burps, and Sakura couldn't help but chuckle a bit at the sight. Fenrix laughed a bit and decided that now was the time to tell Naruto a portion of the information that he carried. Now you are wondering who I really, then I will tell you. You three already know my name, and what I am, at least at first. So therefore, I will explain as best I can. On what I am, I was once human, like the three of you, but I underwent a ceremony that granted me the power and ability of a dragon. It was known as the Blood Ascension Ceremony. This ceremony is ancient, older than anything that exists, and has not been practiced in nearly 9 millennia. Naruto scratched his head at that and asked, what's millennia? Millennia? A millennia is a number of years, namely 1,000, so this special ceremony has not been done in nearly that long, 5,000 years. The dragon race was the first and the only race to have this powerful ritual. This ritual was made by the dragons to pass their powers onto other beings, namely humans. Long ago, when humans were still starting in the building of their civilization, dragons took notice of them and were interested in humanity. They saw that while humans were a short-lived race, and could die easily, they had great potential and drive, and the dragon race decided to give their powers to humans. These humans became the dragon ascendants like myself. Sasuke listened as he couldn't help but wonder just what was going on, and how exactly did Naruto fit in all this. Sakura was the one who asked the question. How does Naruto fit in all this? In due time Sakura Haruno, the dragon ascendants rose in power, and they used their powers in many ways. Some used their powers for the betterment of their people, while others did it for their own desires and for destruction. This made dragons realize that humans were capable of great good and great evil in equal measure. Over the years that passed, The humans who gained the powers of the blood ascension ceremony were able to forge vast civilizations and cultures, but as time passed, later generations of humans believed that they could become even more powerful than the dragon race by killing them and forcing them to give them the secrets of the blood ascension ceremony so they would be truly invincible. They attacked the dragons? Yes. Their efforts were clumsy and foolish. Even the ascendants who were tempted with the idea of surpassing their former benefactors were easily defeated by the older and wiser dragons and their leaders, the Dragon Kings, as well as the ascendants who were against the whole idea. However, this signaled to the dragon race that they had to leave humanity to their fates and carve their own future without interference. Thus was the beginning of the dragon race from the world of men, as well as the other races in their charge who were willing to follow them. Even a large number of ascendants decided to leave the world with their dragon benefactors. Sasuke was getting a bit impatient. He wanted to know just how Naruto got a bloodline that he had never heard of before. Just how does Naruto fit in all this? We don't need the history lessons. Fenrix gave a dark glare at Sasuke that was enough to silence the Uchiha as the eyes of the dragon ascendant took their glowing green hue. This made Naruto and Sakura nervous as they had no idea how the situation will turn out. Fenrix then spoke seriously and showed his displeasure for Sasuke's actions. If you are so curious to know how your teammate fits in all this, then I hate to disappoint you, Sasuke Uchiha, but you will have to wait. All things will be explained in due time and not before. So hold your tongue and listen first. Your world's history is tied to this story as well, so do me, your teammates, and yourself a good favor and be silent. Sasuke would have normally ignored the warning, but something about the change in Fenrix's demeanor told the Uchiha that he was treading on dangerous ground, and so he nodded as he held his tongue. Fenrix relaxed and took a deep breath to relax his own thoughts and continued to speak. The dragon ascendants who were left behind thought that their already existing power was all they needed, but they were partially wrong in that assumption, since while they retained their powers, those powers were not able to be properly unlocked to their full potential after succeeding generations. Over time, the powers they once possessed eventually lost a great deal of its original power and potency, and without the teachings of the dragon race, as well as their knowledge, the powers were either heavily degraded or were eventually left to die and never return into the world of men. Not all the powers, however, faded and still existed and became bloodline inheritances. In the language of your world is Kekai Genkai, I believe. Sasuke was shocked to hear this, and Fenrix spoke to Sasuke directly. Now do you understand what I meant about your world's history being tied to what I was telling about the dragon race and the blood ascension ceremony? Are you saying that? Yes, this world, your world, thousands of years ago was part of the many worlds inhabited by dragons, and they too passed their powers to the humans who lived here. Your ancient ancestors were also dragon ascendants, and like before, attempted to wrestle the power away from the dragon race, forcing their benefactors to leave. And those ascendants began to lose the full potency of their powers. But their powers did not die out quickly like the others, and their bloodlines were not destroyed, despite being degraded. What this means is that your Sharingan, in fact, all the known and still to be seen Kekai Genkai of this world, are actually the degraded remains of the old dragon ascendant blood that existed thousands of years ago. Sasuke was stunned by this, and he couldn't help but feel angry at the thought that his clan's most respected Kekai Genkai was being seen as a degraded form of power. His people had become legends with the Sharingan, and he would not allow that fact to be downplayed by this stranger. You're calling the Sharingan of my clan to be nothing but a watered-down and weak power? Fenrix was not intimidated by Sasuke's words and replied, I am not insulting it, I am merely stating what I know and what I have learned. You're lying. Why would I lie? What would I possibly gain by it? And do not think to attack me out of revenge or anger, Sasuke. I might not look like it, but what you have witnessed before is merely a tiny fraction of my true power. I am already 1,500 years old by human standards and years. And I am far more powerful and skilled than Naruto despite his status as a dragon ascendant like me. I have more power and ability than you could ever hope to accomplish in your lifetime, so if you decide to fight me, know that I can easily crush you like an annoying insect. So I suggest you calm down and keep in mind that I have no interest in you as an enemy for that matter. So don't waste either my time or yours, for both our sakes. Naruto was getting even more confused. Wait a minute here, when did I ever become a dragon ascendant? I don't recall ever taking part in this ceremony or even meeting a dragon. So how the heck can I be an ascendant? Sakura nodded at that as she wanted to know even more on this mystery. I have to agree with Naruto, if what you said was true. Then there have been no dragons in our world for nearly 10,000 years. And if the blood ascension ceremony has not been done for that long, how could Naruto become an ascendant if there are no dragons in our world and they are the only ones who can make the ceremony work? Fenrix smiled. Finally, you are asking the right questions. Tell me something, Naruto. Have you ever met a man by the name of Valen in your younger years? Naruto thought back as the name was very familiar to him, and as he thought hard, it was not long before he recalled the foreigner who had become his friend for a number of months before he had left on his birthday all those years ago. Yeah, I remember someone with that name. He was so cool. I remember him scarring a number of villagers with that cool fire serpent jutsu that used no hand seals. It was awesome. I asked him to teach it to me, but he said he couldn't. Do you know him? Fenrix nodded. Yes, I do. Valen was my master, and a dragon king, one of the 5 rulers of the dragon race. No one was more shocked than Naruto himself. No way, Valen was a dragon? But he didn't look the least like a dragon. He was human? Dragons have many powers, one of which was the ability to take a human appearance. Unlike ascendants who were humans to begin with and thus can take a dragon-like appearance once their powers and bodies had fully matured and at their highest levels of power. He was able to begin the blood ascension ceremony and bestowed his consecrated blood to you on your birthday, when you last saw him. Do you remember the cup that he handed to you during your birthday? Naruto recalled that and he was shocked even more. I drank his blood? Yes. And it was already consecrated, thus you were able to receive its power in full form, and that makes you the very first dragon ascendant to walk this world. However, the reason your powers awakened late in your life was that due to certain circumstances, your dragon blood was sealed away in your body and it was only now that it awakened. Fenrix sighed and thought back on the other dragon ascendants who woke late to their powers for different reasons and what were the results of that. Naruto then looked at the bracers that were on his hands and Fenrix noted that and spoke. Those bracers are specially crafted and enchanted. When you awakened to your dragon blood, you were not yet mentally and spiritually strong enough to control your power and your Dragon King bloodline, which resulted in you becoming a berserker and you attacked others who you saw. If I had not stepped in, you might have turned on your friends. What? Why couldn't I remember this? Your human mind had not adapted well to the power and you regressed into a more bestial state. And do not think you are the first. There have been others who were late in awakening to their hidden powers and their bloodlines, and they had to wear these bracers which were placed on them by their mentors. These are not meant to be permanent, however. Once you have developed the mental and spiritual strength, the bracers will no longer restrain your powers. They will eventually unlock themselves and you can remove them, but until you develop the control and focus needed, then they remain with you. He then looked at Sasuke, who was still fuming mad, and replied towards Naruto and Sasuke. Also, since this is your first time using a bloodline such as this, Naruto, you will have to start from scratch. Unlike the Sharingan, which has been handed down from generation to generation among the Uchiha clan, your power is still in its infancy and is not yet fully grown. In dragon terms, you're still very much a hatchling and thus, your powers will need to be refined and perfected. So I have to learn how to use this power properly. Correct, that is why Master Valen sent me to be your guardian and teacher in the ways of the dragon ascendants. Another thing that I can tell you is that as a dragon ascendant, you can also undertake the blood ascension ceremony in order to pass a portion of your already existing power to another individual, to make him a dragon ascendant as well. That got Sasuke's attention right off the bat as he looked at both Naruto and Fenrix. However, this is something that is not to be taken lightly. You have to grow in power, knowledge, skill, and more before you can do so. If you attempt to do the blood ascension ceremony without the proper training, maturity in body, mind, spirit and experience, plus without the fully mature powers, the results could be disastrous. For both you and that one you wish to pass your powers to. How disastrous would it be? Sasuke asked, and Fenrix simply replied. You both can either suffer intense pain both physically and mentally, as well as crippling yourselves and being reduced into invalids. Or if things go really wrong, then the both of you will die. The silence was deafening at that, and as soon as the reality set in, Fenrix then decided that now was the time to explain to Naruto some of the basic powers that he possessed at the moment due to his dragon blood. However, even with the bracers on, you were already unleashing signs of your powers. At least not totally visible ones. Hand me a kunai. Naruto and the others looked at one another and were very hesitant, but Sakura handed Fenrix one and he took the weapon and spoke to Naruto. Naruto, give me your arm. Naruto did so, and before he could blink, Fenrix grabbed his arms and stabbed him with the kunai. The ninjas panicked and quickly drew weapons while Naruto was released, and Fenrix laughed as he showed them the kunai, which was broken and several of its blade was actually shattered at the moment on the ground. The others were surprised by this, and Naruto looked at his arm and saw that there was not a single drop of blood, not even a scratch. How? That, Naruto, is but the very first sign of your body adapting to the power that now flows in your veins. You might not see it, but there are tiny and near invisible scales that are melding with your skin at the moment. That is dragon skin, and it is a basic power that all dragon ascendants are given as they adapt to their powers. As you can see, this power is able to make your skin similar to dragon skin, which is a lot tougher than normal skin, and can withstand blades and powerful forms of physical and magical attacks. Naruto was looking at his uninjured arm and was smiling a bit as the ramifications began to set into his mind at the moment. So I am invincible? Not exactly. While the dragon skin may make you stronger and tougher, you are not immortal or unstoppable. The ability makes you much harder to injure, but specially made blades with enchantments and the attacks of those who have very high levels of physical and spiritual strength can still injure you. But if anyone attempts to attack you with multiple blades and attacks, then you cannot be harmed. This power is different since as humans, ascendants do not lose their sense of touch like dragons do. Huh? Normal dragon scales grow on dragons every time, and when that happens, they slowly lose their sense of touch. So they sacrifice their sense of touch for the added defense. Ascendants will have that toughness, but not in the same degree as that of dragons themselves, and as such, don't lose their sense of touch. Do you get the idea? Naruto nodded at that, and he was even more curious about what other abilities he had under his command at the moment. What else do I have? You have the basic senses of a dragon, increased sight range, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. Physically, you have increased strength, though at the moment that is controlled by the bracers, as well as increased speed and stamina. You will develop also a dragon's immunity to illusions over time, as well as their resistance to various elements, toxins, and weakness. Will I even grow wings? Eventually you will, and they will be in the form of energy, but at the moment you have no wings at the moment. Those take time to grow properly and also to control. You certainly don't need those wings to suddenly sprout out in the middle of a busy street, you know. Anyway, here's one power you might find useful when the time comes. Do you see that tree over there? Naruto turned in the direction that Fenrix was pointing and nodded. Good. Now then, imagine your breath in your lungs becoming as hot and as intense as fire, and then unleash your breath at that tree. Naruto did so, and to his shock and that of the others, his breath did become flame as a massive tongue of fire was unleashed from his mouth at that exact moment of action. And the tree was easily incinerated in a matter of moments by the sudden unleashing of flame on it. All that was left of the once massive tree was a pile of pure ash. Naruto clasped his mouth in shock as he looked at the large tree that he had just reduced into nothing but ash in merely a moment. As soon as he was feeling a bit calmer, he turned to speak to Fenrix, who watched in approval, while Sasuke and Sakura were looking on with great surprise, and as soon as he was able to recover from the sight, he spoke to Fenrix. Did I just breath fire? Yes, you did. Fire breathing is very normal for dragons, and it's child's play for ascendants. And unlike the fire-based jutsus done by ninja, what you did is a very basic and simplistic technique, and as you can see, it does not rely on hand seals. There are other breath techniques that you can use, but those will come in time. For now, however, I suggest we get moving. This cooking fire will no doubt attract all manner of predators and other ninja. And while we can handle them well enough, now is not the time, and you three need to find another team to get their scroll, am I correct? As they moved out, Kabuto made his appearance, and while the genin who had taken the exam 7 times was surprised to meet the dragon ascendant, he couldn't do much at the moment as Fenrix had no intention of leaving his charge alone for the time being. However, Fenrix did not trust Kabuto despite his pilot demeanor and manners, as he could tell due to his long years of experience. This seemingly kind person had a much darker personality and had an ulterior motive. He watched as Kabuto observed both Sasuke and Naruto, and that was the thing that made the Ascendant very wary at the moment. Naruto was eager to tell Kabuto about his new powers, but Fenrix gave him a very serious look, and despite being confused as to why his teacher in the art of the dragon ascendance was giving him that look, he knew that he should not reveal anything yet about his powers, and thus he kept his trap shut. They were able to track a genin team from the village of Hidden Waterfall and managed to get their scroll, and they were able to make it to the tower, and as soon as they got there, Naruto and others were able to get the scrolls open and walk through the scrolls. None other than Iruka, who despite being surprised by the presence of Fenrix who had joined the trio had told them that they passed in secret behind the two scrolls and the next parts of the Chunin exams. However, Fenrix had other ideas as he spoke to Iruka. "I need to speak to the Hokage if at all possible." "Why do you want to see the Hokage? And who are you?" "Tell him that Valen's old student is here to see him." Iruka remembered Valen very easily and could see that this man had the same level of manners as Naruto's old foreign friend had at the moment. However, like before, he couldn't help but feel that this guy had a hidden power, the same way Valen did, but if he was Valen's student, then he was all right in his book. It did not take long for the Hokage to arrive, and Fenrix bowed before him and spoke. "Greetings Hiruzen Sarutobi. You are exactly as my master Valen described." The Hokage nodded and looked at Naruto, and like before when he sensed a fraction of Valen's powers, he sensed the same at the moment in Naruto and knew that now was the time for the truth to come out. However, there was the fact that Valen's plans for Naruto had to be put into motion, and while Naruto had no idea what his foreign Dragon King friend had done for him, the Hokage had no doubt that things were going to be very interesting. With that in mind, he asked Iruka to guide Sasuke and Sakura to the main area where the other genin teams were at the moment. Naruto and Fenrix however were brought to another place in the tower, and sure enough, as soon as they entered the room, there were the council members of Konoha. As Sarutobi sat down, he knew that this day was by far going to be the longest he would ever be in at the moment. He wondered just what would happen if Orochimaru found out about Naruto's unique bloodline. He thought back on the day he discovered just who Valen was. Flashback. Sarutobi was surprised to see himself not in the Hokage Tower but in a massive field filled with grass and flowers. There were clear skies and clouds all over the place. It was a beautiful sight at the moment, and it was then that he saw Valen. But the human disappeared and then was replaced by a massive reptilian creature with wings and a long tail. His scales were deep platinum in color, and there were a number of large gems that were on his body and a crown-like protrusion of pure crystal on the head of the massive creature that moved back, and his wings were releasing some sort of wispy light that were of many colors like the rainbow. "What in the name of the kami? Calm yourself Hiruzen Sarutobi. I am in my real form, that of a Dragon King." "Valen? Is that really you?" "That it is. You are in my mind Hiruzen Sarutobi. And you are seeing me in my true form. I have never revealed this form to other humans in nearly 9,000 years. You are the first mortal in your world's history to see me in my full might. The human form I take not only allows me to blend among humans and other mortals, but submerges my full powers." The Hokage was stunned and wondered how to act. Long ago, when he was a child, he had been told ancient tales about dragons, and he was truly fascinated by the old legends about how dragons would bestow great powers on humans and how these powers became legend. But he never truly believed them. But here he was now, in the mind of a dragon, and it was talking to him. "Relax young one. You might be old by human standards. But to me and my race, you are still very young. Now come, sit and I shall tell you of some truly amazing tales that I doubt even the greatest of your village had ever known. And what is my reason for being here?" End of flashback. As he thought back on those things and Valen's desire to aid Naruto, he couldn't help but look at the young boy. He had been told that Valen had every intention to give Naruto a true power, older than anything that existed. The very origin of all the Kekkei Genkei of this world. The power of the dragon race. It was something he thought he would ever have the honor of seeing, but he worried about how the council would react to this news at the moment. However, Valen had planned ahead, and even the professor had to admit that it was pure genius, and beneficial to the village at the same time. Valen had also told him about his chosen teacher for Naruto in the ways of the dragon ascendants, and Fenrix proved to be everything his master told him about. As they sat back, a number of people gave curious looks to Fenrix and hostile ones to Naruto. The Hokage sighed at that, But he could tell that Fenrix was glaring back and he couldn't help but be slightly amused at the sight of the council members being cowed a bit by the glare the older, wiser, and more powerful and skilled dragon ascendant. Homura, his old teammate, was the very first to speak. "We are here as you asked, Hokage-sama. What is this about?" "This discussion is twofold. Recently we have learned that Orochimaru had returned to the village and has already begun to make his move on our homeland. There is no doubt in my mind that he is planning something sinister on our village." The council were deep in discussion the very moment Orochimaru's name was brought up, and it was then that Anko arrived and gave her report on what was discovered when they found the real grass ninja who were all dead, and also what Orochimaru told her. The news that Sasuke Uchiha was the target of Orochimaru caused considerable concern from the council. They knew the power of the Sharingan, and if Orochimaru had interest in it, then they would have been ready for anything at the moment. As they planned out a strategy, it was then that one council member spoke to the rest. "Hokage-sama. Why is Naruto Uzumaki here in this chamber?" The Hokage nodded and knew that now was the time to drop the news of Naruto's newly awakened bloodline to the Konoha Council. In fact, he couldn't help but admit mentally to himself that he was going to enjoy this. This has something to do with an incident no less than 5 years ago. The Hokage then told the council about the arrival of Valen to the village and what he had learned from the disguised Dragon King, namely on the blood ascension ceremony. The council were silent and none of them asked any questions. But many of them were directing their attention to Naruto and were studying him, trying to determine just how could this child who carried the Kyuubi could have such a bloodline. As soon as Sarutobi was done, he spoke to Fenrix as he had been told by Valen that since his student was the same as Naruto but older, more experienced, and wiser, he would know far more and he would truly give the council a lot to think about at the moment. And true enough, when Fenrix told the council what he had told Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura about the blood ascension ceremony and the history of their own world thousands of years ago, there was an uproar. The council members were looking at Naruto incredulously and were talking back and forth. This knowledge shocked the very council to their knees, and it had taken a few minutes for the knowledge to sink in and take hold of the people. To think that this kid had a Kekkei Genkai that was the progenitor of all the known Kekkei Genkai was in one word, astonishing. Sarutobi took this all in stride and then removed a special document that he had made and waited to put into action for nearly 5 long years. This was going to elevate Naruto to a whole new level, befitting the powers he had now been awakened to. I have been planning to deal with this for some time, and therefore, considering that Naruto is the sole owner of this Kekkei Genkai and is a citizen of the village of Konoha, it is by law that as a user of a Kekkei Genkai, Naruto is to become the head of his own clan. That will take his last name. As of today, Naruto Uzumaki is now head of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto was stunned by this as well as overjoyed. In just one day, he had gone from a simple genin with a dark secret to the head of his own clan and wielding a Kekkei Genkai that was now recognized as the progenitor of all the Kekkei Genkai in existence. Homura and Kaharu were very much in shock, as well as just about everyone in the council, and it took a few minutes for Homura to speak. "We need proof to see if this is all true." Fenrix nodded and replied, "Fair enough." As the council was ended with Naruto swearing not to reveal anything to his team and also to prepare for the soon-to-come announcement of his being head of his own clan. Fenrix and Naruto went back to the other genin, with the Hokage planning to speak to Kakashi in secret soon about all that was happening in the shadows. Fenrix then spoke to him in secret. "Naruto, I will allow you to use your powers in this fight. Once you start the fight you will be part of. Summon your Dragon King blood, and when you feel its powers come, say the words, Dragon King blood. Release, and think of an elemental form. How will that work? You'll see." As Naruto arrived, the others were surprised that he finally arrived, and the Hokage then told them the true purpose of the exams and what was about to happen. Sasuke himself was eager to get things going, but apart from wanting to fight both Gaara and even Neji Hyuga, he had developed the desire to fight Naruto himself. He was not going to let this new Kekkei Genkai beat the Uchiha clan's Sharingan, despite the fact that Naruto's Kekkei Genkai was supposed to the pure version and much more powerful than the Sharingan and the ancestor of the Sharingan. He would not let the Sharingan, the pride and honor of the Uchiha, be overshadowed by anything, even this Dragon King bloodline. The thought of using the Sharingan to beat Naruto had made the seal react, and he held his shoulder in pain once more. Sakura saw that and couldn't help but feel even more concerned by what was happening. She had seen and heard Orochimaru's dire warning and plans to take Sasuke, and she couldn't help but feel even more afraid of what might happen if Orochimaru. She was not the only one, however, in that train of thought. Sarutobi, Ibiki, Kakashi and Anko watched the situation, and they each had their own thoughts on the matter. The elderly Hokage wondered if he was making the wrong move, but focused himself on the here and now, since if he tried to do something that could alert his former student of their plans, then things would be in even greater danger. For now, they had to play along that they were just becoming aware of the situation and keep Orochimaru in the dark about their covert plans. He didn't know where Orochimaru was right now, but there was no doubt that he would very well be watching, and he might be in the very same room as they all were. Naruto told them that Orochimaru had sent the Sound Genin as an assassination team for Sasuke. So that would mean that he could be in league with Sound or had manipulated them to fight for him. He didn't have enough data to make a move, and it was a very risky game he was playing, but it was the only option they had right now. Anko hoped that the others would see reason and have Sasuke placed in isolation so they could keep the cursed seal under wraps. But she reined in her thoughts and tried to think it over. The council made it clear that even if they were successful in keeping him sealed up, Orochimaru would no doubt act quickly and would kill as many people as he wants to force them to show how he would react to them trying to deny him his gift. She had a feeling that there would be more involved with Orochimaru's return to Konoha. She knew enough about her former sensei that he always had other plans buried in his current ones. Ibiki hated to admit it, but he knew how dangerous Orochimaru was. Even when he was the leader of the Anbu interrogation squad, he was afraid of Orochimaru, even when he was still a child. The snake-summoning boy with snake-like eyes and pale white skin seemed more monster than human to the battle-hardened special Jonin, and the horrible things that Orochimaru did for the sake of power and knowledge further reinforced his inner fear of Orochimaru. He knew that Orochimaru would not hesitate in any way to get what he wanted, and would any method. Not only was he known as a highly skilled ninja, but also as a master manipulator. He had no doubts in his mind that Orochimaru would have plans to help him as well. Kakashi was told about the cursed seal and heard Anko's words and how he defended the Sasuke and how Anko reacted. He actually understood Anko's anger and how she would look at Sasuke with worry and mistrust. He knew Anko had once been Orochimaru's student years ago when she was young, no doubt around Naruto's own age or younger. She had grown to hate and despise Orochimaru for his evil ways, and while she did have something of a dark streak in her nature, she was not evil in the full sense, and she had learned a number of useful jutsu. Like all others who knew her, he knew about cursed seal that she herself had, and while he told them the truth about Sasuke, he kept in mind that out the other children subjected by Orochimaru to the cursed seal before Sasuke was given that cursed seal, Anko was known to be only among the very few survivors of the cursed seal, as many like her died in great pain from the cursed seal. So she would know how deadly it was. He wondered if he should be ready to make his move, but for now he knew that he had to keep the binding technique ready should the cursed seal become too much. Sakura was about to raise her hand when Sasuke stopped her with a glare and spoke in a tone that demanded answers. "What are you doing, Sakura?" "Sasuke, you have to forfeit the matches for now." "Why the heck should I? Do you think I'm blind to how you're suffering from the effects of the cursed seal? You can barely use either your chakra or your Sharingan without that thing coming to life and injuring you even further. You can't hope to survive any fight with that thing eating you from the inside. Please, I am begging you as a friend and teammate, to please forfeit, not for our sake, but your own." Sasuke, however, didn't listen as he thought back on his oath: be stronger, to gain more power and more ability to finally accomplish his long dream of avenging his clan and killing the one responsible for the murder of all of his family by one of their own, his own. He then thought about his dream, and what and who he was. He was no longer just a man, but an avenger, a being who sought power and would seek out that power, regardless of its source, be it kind or evil. He wanted to show that he was strong, and he wielded power to defeat all who faced him, and the only way to gain it was to fight the strongest. And all of them were here, in this very tower. He could not afford to back down from this. Lee, Dosu, Gaara, Neji, and Naruto were here in this room. If he backed down now, he would never get another chance like this, and he was not going to be denied this chance. He would prove the power of the Sharingan for all to see, especially Fenrix and his student Naruto. The three genin, however, turned when someone spoke out. "Okay, You got me, I'm out of this part. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke turned to see Kabuto raising his hand, and that made Sasuke very wary of the Leaf Genin who was now leaving the scene. Holy Talon thought likewise and wondered just what was Kabuto up to. From what it could sense, the Genin had more than enough chakra and physical strength to be in this match. Why was he backing out? Naruto was also curious and spoke. Hey Kabuto-san, why are you leaving? Kabuto turned and smiled a bit and replied. I'm sorry Naruto, but I had a heck of a hard time getting the scroll from the other team I fought with, and they really drained me, and even if we made it here now, I'm still somewhat beat up. But I know you can do well, I know I'll miss it, but, hey don't worry about me, do your best alright. Naruto looked sad but smiled and gave Kabuto a thumbs up signal. I will. Kabuto smiled back and gave the same reply as he left the area. However, he didn't get away scot-free. Sarutobi looked at the leaving form of Kabuto and recalled something. This was not the very first time he had seen this young man. And neither was this the first time he had seen the man leave the Chunin exams at this stage. At first, he had allowed it as there was truth to his claims. But now that this was the 7th time he had done this act, he got suspicious. He turned to Anko and Ibiki as well, and they were able to find out just who he was, namely his name of Kabuto Yakushi and his times in the academy and in the missions he had undertaken, and the times he had taken the Chunin exams. His grades were average and he was not really much of a special case. However, Anko revealed that he was the child who was found among the enemy dead during a battle in Konoha's history years before, the Battle of Kikyu Pass, by one of the Konoha medic squads, and was taken in. And that boy grew up here, learning medical jutsus, and had a very unremarkable career. That boy was Kabuto himself. As soon as Sarutobi got the details, he looked at Kabuto and thought to himself aloud. What sort of game is that young man playing with us? He wasn't the only one, as Kabuto was stopped by Yoroi, his fellow teammate, and spy of Orochimaru. The two exchanged a hushed conversation with Yoroi warning Kabuto about his playing games and keeping his loyalty to Orochimaru, to which Kabuto replied back that he doesn't have to worry, and to which Yoroi replied that while he was Orochimaru's favorite, he was certainly going beyond his bounds. Kabuto replied that he knew about Yoroi's desire to take his place and now was his chance. With that, Kabuto bid farewell to both Naruto and Sasuke. Sorry I couldn't stay and fight, but if I did, the old me would have come back. I will be watching though. I hope you do well Sasuke-kun. And you too Naruto-kun. Besides, if I fought here and now, I would be revealed as a spy, and I wouldn't want that. The rest I leave to you and your capable hands Orochimaru-sama. The sound Jonin looked on, but a thin smile appeared as Kabuto left the room, leaving the others to wonder on what they would do. However, Sasuke made up his mind already. As Sakura tried to raise her hand once more, he stopped her and replied. Sakura, this is my path. I chose it for myself. You have no right to tell me what I should do. I am your teammate and friend Sasuke-kun, and I can't just stand by and let that thing eat you alive. If you are truly my friend and teammate Sakura, then let me fight. This Chunin exam is more than an exam for me. I don't care much about the title of Chunin. I am an Avenger. Nothing more. I have something to do no matter what, and I can't have myself stopped by anyone, not even you. All the strongest ninja are here and now. If I don't fight them here and now, then how can I see how strong I have become? I have to become strong no matter what. I won't let anything stop me, and that is what I want, and you have no right to stop me. Sakura looked on sadly, unable to say anything as she tried her best to reason with her teammate. Naruto, however, was far from happy with Sasuke's behavior towards Sakura, and he was not going to let Sasuke's attitude get the better of him. Sasuke-teme, you have to listen for once, stop acting so cool and focus on the truth, that damn seals. Sasuke then turned and gave a challenging look to Naruto. Naruto, you ought to know that you're one of the people I want to fight. That made Naruto glare back and wonder just what was going on in the mind of Sasuke, but they had no time to think about that as Hayate got the Chunin exams underway. He then showed them the screen nearby that would take the names of the genin present and pair them in one-on-one combat. Also, since there were 23 of them, then it would be a series of 11 matches to start the preliminaries. It didn't take long for the first match to begin, and much to Naruto and Sakura's dismay, it was Sasuke Uchiha against Yoroi Akadu. Sakura was stunned, while Sasuke smiled. Naruto gave a shake of his head, while Lee, Dosu, Neji, and Gaara decided to take a good long look at Sasuke and see just how he gets out of this one. As soon as that was announced, the genin and their Jonin sensei made their way to the upper terraces to watch the match and to stay away from the fight itself. I won't have this fight any other way. Gecko then spoke. All right, the names called forward, please come forward. The Chunin proctor then faced the men and asked them if they had any objections to the match-up between them, and they replied that they had none. While Orochimaru in his sound Jonin disguise smiled and watched on to see how this situation will play itself out. Sasuke then spoke to Yoroi. You are going to be in for the fight of your life with me. Hey, bring it on, Sasuke Uchiha. Yoroi said with a smile, which was naturally hidden by his veil as he looked at Sasuke, who looked back with a smirk. Naruto and Sakura looked on and wondered how things would turn out, while the others were looking with interest. Sasuke kept his cool, but held his shoulder in pain as the cursed seal once more reacted with his chakra. Hayate saw this and then gave the announcement that those who were not called were to leave and head for the upper levels for the match grounds to be clear of bystanders. As they got ready, Kakashi came by and was greeted with great enthusiasm by Naruto, and the Jonin spoke directly to Sasuke. You have to be careful not to use your Sharingan, Sasuke. If that mark activates, then your life will be on a thin edge. So you know about the seal? Yes. And what it does to those who are infected with it, and just so you know, if this fight gets beyond your ability to handle, then I will stop the fight personally. Sasuke turned and was outraged by Kakashi's words to him, and it made him even more unhappy to know that there was some truth to Kakashi's words. If he used the Sharingan, he would be vulnerable when the cursed seal activated itself and allow his foe to beat him senseless. But he knew that it responded to his chakra quite often. If I use my chakra, it grows stronger and its grip, and Orochimaru's grip on me grows stronger. I have to beat Yoroi without my Sharingan, and my clan's jutsus are off limits as well. Maybe I can make him laugh to death instead. Orochimaru, however, was going to enjoy this fight. You are going in for a good test, Sasuke-kun. Yoroi's unique talents should be a real challenge. I want to see if you can overcome it. Sasuke sighed mentally and psyched himself up and got ready nevertheless. The other teams got ready to watch as Kakashi hoped that Sasuke didn't overdo it and get himself in a real mess. As soon as Gecko gave the signal, both ninja went to work, as Yoroi threw some shuriken and Sasuke fired some kunai. But Sasuke was stunned to the ground when the cursed seal awakened, nearly leaving him open to attack as Yoroi closed the gap. Sasuke quickly used his remaining strength to move out of the way of Yoroi's fist. He then used the kunai he had to get a grip on the floor and used his legs to kick Yoroi down to the ground, and then with several restraining moves managed to knock Yoroi to the ground and opted to try and make Yoroi fall to submission. He got him. Naruto cheered, but Yoroi merely grinned and replied, "Really now? Who's got who, I wonder?" His hand glowed once more as he activated his own chakra and then grabbed Sasuke, and much to Sasuke's shock and disbelief, his chakra was being taken from his body. What the hell is happening? Yoroi then stuck hard, loosening Sasuke's grip, and then forced his way through, and much to the shock of everyone in the room, except Orochimaru, who smiled sadistically as the spy from the Sound Village leapt back, and as Sasuke managed to get off the floor, the ninja then used his glowing hand once more and began to drain Sasuke's chakra, making Sasuke lose his power. Kakashi and the others looked on in surprise and disbelief as the Uchiha survivor was being placed in a deadly situation. My chakra? What the hell are you doing to my chakra? What, you're just noticing it now? Yoroi replied as he laughed and continued his actions on the still weakened and disoriented Sasuke, who couldn't muster enough strength to break free just yet. Orochimaru noted and wondered how Sasuke would be able to handle this mess. Yoroi was indeed given such a unique talent. He could absorb the chakra of his foes with only a touch of his hand, quite a unique and deadly talent in the right hands and in the right circumstances, and this would make things even more difficult for Sasuke. As soon as Yoroi takes your precious chakra, Sasuke-kun, you will have no other choice but to rely on my little gift to you, and we shall see how you do. Release that forbidden power, it will save you after all, you have no choice in this matter. Sasuke managed to gather enough strength to kick Yoroi away from him, but he knew now that close combat with this guy was a serious mistake. If he got grabbed like that again, he was finished, but he was too weakened by the first two attacks that using either kunai or shuriken were a bad idea, and even if he could do it, the cursed seal would hurt even more. Yoroi however was not going to stop as he lashed out at Sasuke and the Uchiha ninja tried to evade and managed to avoid some of the blows, but he got hit by the hand in the hair. However, instead of being a miss, the chakra absorbing technique affected him quickly, forcing him to lose even more of his strength, but he had enough to tolerate Yoroi's taunts and get some distance. Sasuke-kun, damn it, what the heck is wrong with you? Think of something fast or your history, Sasuke. Sasuke admitted that Naruto had a point and then he realized that he had one chance. Part of it wasn't original, but heck, as things were at this moment, it was better than nothing. He waited and then made his move, managing to avoid Yoroi's next strike. He then attacked with a move that everyone recognized, including a duo of ninjas with the same hairstyle, the same suits, and the same bushy brows. Wait, that's my move, Lee said as he saw Sasuke use the same kick that he had used on him before during that test fight. He couldn't believe that Sasuke was using that move as well. What the? Guy thought as Sasuke leapt after Yoroi. As soon as they were in mid-air and Sasuke was behind Yoroi, he confessed something to the hidden sound spy. Alright, I'll admit I borrowed this move, but from this point on, the rest is my own creation. With that, Yoroi only commented the first part of the move as Sasuke began to take his shot at taking out Yoroi. But before he could accomplish it, the cursed seal once more activated and he was bathed in pain as the flame patterns once more began to spread all over his body as he now felt its presence begin to fill his body and mind. Damn it all, not now. Sasuke-kun. Crap, Sasuke, you had better not lose here and now of all things. You said you and I will be fighting soon when the preliminaries are over. Don't you dare go back on your word to me now. Sasuke looked at Sakura with her eyes in tears and her face in worry and fear, while Naruto was seriously tense and not wanting him to just give up and lose now. He was not going to be beaten here, he had much to live up to and his two goals in life would be even further out of his reach if he lost here and now. Damn, I won't lose, I will win and I will do it on my own power. With that, he focused his will and strength of mind into it and managed to beat back the seal and force it to subside. Much to the shock of the people who knew about it, namely Kakashi, Anko, Sarutobi and naturally Orochimaru himself as Sasuke used several attacks to take Yoroi out of the match and finished the attack with a powerful heel kick known as the Lion's Barrage. The two ninja were out of it, but Sasuke was able to get off his back and was sitting down with exhaustion and Hayate declared Sasuke the winner and that was Kakashi's cue to make his move after trading some words with Guy. As Yoroi was taken away by the medics for treatment and one of the medics tried to approach Sasuke, but Kakashi interceded. The Jonin told Sasuke that the cursed seal had to be contained and now was as good a time as any for it to be done. Sasuke naturally was not happy with the fact that he was going to be missing out on the rest of the competition. But Kakashi was not backing down and Sasuke had no choice as he was followed by Kakashi. Orochimaru smiled and was excited at what he had seen while Anko and the others who were aware of the effects of the cursed seal were impressed that Sasuke was able to resist the call of the cursed seal to use its power. Orochimaru however decided to leave the scene and see just what Kakashi was having in mind. However, Dosu did not like this. He had a feeling that there was to what was going on and he wondered what was going to happen next. However, he decided to see just what would be the outcome of the other matches. He had nothing left to take care of at the moment and attacking Orochimaru was suicidal to say the least. Back in the ring, Naruto sighed and got ready to the soon-to-come fight that he is going to be handed to by the council and as a way to test his Kekkei Genkei. He was looking forward to this fight and hoped that what Fenrix said to him would work out. It was then that Gekko spoke. Due to the large number of Genin teams, a Genin team must be removed as per request by the council. The next fight will place the Genin team from the village of Hidden Rain against. The people watched as the electronic board moved through the names and to the shock of everyone, except Naruto and Fenrix, Naruto's name came up. The other Genin were surprised as one Genin taking on a three-man team was unheard of anywhere. And even more so that it was Naruto who was going to be the one lone Genin who was going to be fighting against them. The Rookie 9 knew that Naruto's new power might work, but how ill he beat at least 3 targets. The Rain Genin had the thought that they were going to win easily and their leader spoke to prove their thoughts. I don't know why a punk like you gets to fight all 3 of us, but we are going to make sure we are not going to be eliminated by you. If you could eliminate us by your lonesome kid. Naruto however was not the least bit intimidated as he replied with a confident smirk. Why don't you stop talking and start fighting? The Rain Genin got real angry at that, and their leader Oboro cast the Cage Bushin Jutsu that they favored, and when they had surrounded Naruto they unleashed another surprise. Take this brat. The Rain Genin unleashed a massive number of shuriken and kunai at Naruto to finish him off. Naruto, however, merely relaxed and closed his eyes, much to the shock of everyone in the area, while Kin, Dosu, and Zaku looked on. Kin looked at Naruto and spoke. Is that guy trying to commit suicide? Who the hell cares? He's nothing but trash. Dosu, however, was not so sure about that. After what he had seen the boy turn into before when Kin and Zaku were out cold, he, leader of the Sound Genin team, knew that there was a lot more that what was going on before him. And his thoughts were proven true as the kunai and shuriken hit Naruto. Without ill effect. The weapons merely hit him on the skin and bounced off, without a single drop of blood on his body. What the hell? Naruto grinned, and now it was time to pay these guys back for that attack. He focused his thoughts on his blood and then felt a rush hit his body, and now he felt himself being energized, and the others watched as Naruto once more was releasing the same gold and silver mist, and he spoke to the Rain Genin team. Now that you've had your fun, it's my turn. Naruto tensed up and shouted. Dragon King blood, release. Whined. Elsewhere? I must have been out of my mind to have said that. Kakashi said to himself as he calmed himself a bit and looked over at Sasuke, who was currently resting after the binding seal ritual that he had undergone. He was acting this way since he had been faced by Orochimaru, who was shed his disguise and revealed himself still in his Sound Jonin outfit, and the two traded words, while Kakashi defended Sasuke with his use of his Reikiri. During this time, Orochimaru revealed that he had known about the Wave Country mission, but only because he wanted to keep track of his prize, Sasuke. He also revealed that he was the head and leader of the Sound Village, and that sooner or later, Sasuke will be his, and then nothing would stop him. However, he was interested with Naruto now, either as a test subject or as a target to be eliminated, and to have that sword either corrupted or destroyed. Orochimaru left afterwards, and Kakashi was able to get some help from a small band of Anbu that he sent to escort and protect Sasuke in the hospital, where he was to rest and recover until his body got used to the binding seal. Before Sasuke fell unconscious, he had told him that the binding seal needed his will to keep the cursed seal from spreading. In the ring, the Rain Genin couldn't help but feel themselves come close to crapping in their suits as they witnessed something that no one had ever expected. They had expected a 3-on-1 fight to be easy for them, while everyone else were shocked with the situation as Naruto faced a senior Genin team all on his own. However, it seemed that there was no need to worry. Sarutobi couldn't help but smile a bit, and he looked at Fenrix, who smiled at him as the two of them looked on. The Hokage turned to see the shocked expression of the other members of the Konoha Council. It had shocked them to see that Fenrix was not kidding about Naruto's newly awakened bloodline being powerful despite it being still in the infancy stage. Naruto looked at his arms and saw the tattoos that took the color of pure silver, and the tattoos were also different in form and pattern. There were waves and lines as well as cloud-like symbols and whirling spirals, and even though he knew that this was just a basic power at the moment, he was amazed by the power that was flowing out of his body at the moment. All he said was the release command, and then the element wind, and then the tattoos appeared and transformed. Even though he still felt the rush of pain at first, but that was now nothing more than a simple prick than a blinding flash of power. And here he was now, surrounded by a column of pure wind that was moving about him at his very command. There were 2 visible vortexes of air on his hands, while a glowing aura of air surrounded the area near his feet, showing swirling light and air around him like a tornado, and his eyes were glowing slightly as his tattoos were glowing, and he could feel the power of his bloodline flowing through his veins, and he felt a desire to unleash his powers at the full. All over the area and the building were strong winds as the air came alive and moved all over the place, and the wind was flowing in and moving all over Naruto in that moment. Naruto then decided to bring it on as he moved and leapt over the heads of the Rain Genin, and as soon as he landed, he spun himself and moved his arms towards his chest in the same way and created a massive sphere of pure high concentrated air around him. He then pushed his arms outward at the sides, and the air concentrated there in the sphere that covered him suddenly exploded with amazing force outward. The 3-man team of Rain Genin were sent flying outward, and so were their Bushin, and those were reduced to splatter as the power of the wind-based attack. And the Rain Genin were knocked out in merely 3 seconds, a new record in the whole history of the Chunin exams. Just about every ninja within the whole room was stunned at the sight before them all. Naruto, with just one move, had defeated 3 genin in one simple but powerful move and in merely the time frame of 3 seconds. Holy, what was that? Kiba was shocked out of his hood as he saw that all the rain genin were knocked out by one move. If he thought that the sight of Naruto not even taking a single scratch from the kunai and shuriken that were thrown at him was shocking, this one just beat them all. Akamaru was also confused and barking. That was amazing, Naruto-kun. Hinata was blushing bright red at how much Naruto had not just grown physically, but in power as well. That was amazing, as well as the sight of Naruto being unharmed by the kunai and shuriken that were thrown at him earlier. She had thought he was going to be badly injured, but the shuriken and kunai didn't even hurt him. Is that the power of Naruto's Kekai Genkai? If that is, it is amazing. Rock Lee was impressed and proved it as he shouted, "That was great, Naruto-san." Quote, Guy was also impressed at the sight. He was not familiar with the move that Naruto had used and wondered if Kakashi had been teaching him some new technique. However, the rival of Kakashi had his doubts. That move was certainly something that Kakashi might learn during his years as an ANBU, but as a taijutsu master of Konoha he saw that the technique required no hand seals at all. He knew that there was no way a jutsu like that would be done without hand seals, so it must be something. For now, since Kakashi had left with Sasuke to do something, he would have to keep this secret for the time being and figure out what was going on. Ino was surprised at the whole scene. Is that really Naruto? The same Naruto who used to be the dead last among us? This is troublesome. If he can fight like that at the moment, there's no way I can beat him if I have to fight him. Shikamaru said as he looked on. Choji was silent as he munched on, but even he was impressed by what he had seen. Their Jonin sensei were also surprised by the sight. Asuma was stunned to silence as he nearly dropped his currently lit cigarette to the ground at the sight before him. As soon as he was able to get his mouth to work at the moment, he decided to speak. That was unexpected. That was no normal wind release technique. Kurenai was also impressed by the sight. Amazing, to think he could manipulate wind to that degree and not use hand seals doing it. Could this really be the same Naruto who was the undeniable class clown that failed several times in the academy graduation exam? Gaara was very impressed at the sight and trembled as he looked at the raw power Naruto had just displayed before them. He is strong, very strong, I want to kill him. Tamari was also surprised. Impossible, that guy did all that? Wow. Kankuro was surprised at the sight. Baki was likewise impressed as he had never seen that before. There were a large number of wind users back in Suna, Tamari being one of them. But there was no one who could manipulate that much wind with only their hands and body. This one deserved to be watched. The Sand Jonin decided to do some investigating. Even though he had faith in the plan, this Naruto Uzumaki might prove to be a problem. Baki however had no idea how much Naruto would be a problem as the blonde genin and now clan head moved triumphantly back to the upper floor to see the next fight. The village of Konoha. Naruto walked back to his home as he was accompanied by Fenrix. The day had been very long and hard at the moment as he had witnessed a good numbers of battles. He had been tasked to face Kiba and Akamaru, but the fight did not last long as Kiba, who was not happy with fighting him at his new state, and both he and Akamaru did their best, but he had easily defeated them. But naturally he didn't harm Kiba too much. His bracers limited his full power, even his strength, though his strength was greater than it was before when he was not able to awaken his powers, and this allowed him to defeat Kiba well enough despite Akamaru's help. He had to admit that Kiba gave as good as he got, but with his dragon skin, no amount of attacks Kiba and Akamaru threw at him could easily harm him, though it still stung a bit as his scales, according to Fenrix, were still developing and needed more time to fully adapt to his body. The other fights were pretty interesting as he looked on. The fight between Zaku and Shino was interesting enough, and Fenrix looked at the battle with a critical eye and knew that the destruction bugs were the key to Shino's victory, as this allowed him a unique combat advantage over the other foes he would be facing at the moment. Another fight was naturally the one between Kin and Shikamaru, where his former classmate was proving to be very good in his own right as well as any other ninja despite his apparent laziness through the use of his shadow manipulation Kekai Genkai. The end of the fight was somewhat amusing to Fenrix, who had admitted he had seen such a move before but said that the ones used by the Nara clan were not as powerful as the much older form, Nevertheless, he congratulated it and considered the Nara clan to be very good in their use of the old ascendant bloodline that their clan had in them. The fight between Ino and Sakura was rather interesting as the two fought it out with whatever skills and abilities they had. Ino was the stronger of the two, but Sakura was just as determined, and he was surprised with the use of Bushin that was similar to his own. And while the fight had ended in a double knockout, and that meant that Sakura was no longer able to compete in the semifinals, he was happy that Sakura finally showed that she had what it took to be a kunoichi, and he noted the fact that despite their fighting, the friendship that was between the two was still there. Fenrix noted that as well and respected that, and said that while this was a simple battle by most if not all standard, it was a good fight. It was also when Kakashi arrived on the scene to see how things were doing. There were two fights, however, that got his attention completely, and the same could be said for Fenrix. The first battle was the battle between Hinata and Neji. From the very second the battle started, he was getting enraged by the way Neji was belittling Hinata, and the sight of the girl he once thought to be shy, dark, and weird was somehow enraging him. To hear her try to defend herself and the way she looked made Naruto even more angry at Neji's actions. He shouted to Neji to shut up, and he then told Hinata to stand up for herself and prove to Neji that she could change no matter what and beat the snot out of him. Hinata did her very best but was beaten. However, he saw that she had done her best, and she was alright as Kakashi, Guy, and Kurenai stopped Neji from landing a fatal blow. Flashback. HMPH. Typical of the main family getting all the treatment. Neji, however, was unable to finish his words when a shout came right at him. Shut up. Neji barely had enough time to move out of the way as Naruto came right at him with a fist surrounded by a vortex of wind, and the fist ripped through the floor like it was nothing more than kindling, surprising everyone, including Kakashi. Naruto moved away from the clouds, covered in the same tornado aura, and his eyes were glowing a bit and his teeth were bare. He lifted his fist and spoke to Neji as the winds whirled about him. I am going to rip that damn tongue out of your mouth with my bare hands. Fenrix, however, stepped in, and so did Kakashi, despite the fact the Jonin had no idea what was going on at the moment. Naruto, that is enough. Kakashi held one side of Naruto's shoulder while Fenrix held Naruto's coiled fist, and the senior dragon ascendant watched as the bracers quickly reacted and Naruto's powers began to subside and the tornado stopped and the tattoos faded from Naruto's body, and the blonde genin turned to see to Hinata. She tried to say something to him but she fell unconscious. Naruto looked at the blood there from Hinata and touched it, and then turned to Neji and snorted and spoke to Neji. If you and I ever fight, mark my words, you are going to apologize for what you have said, because I will beat the crap out of you like you've never felt before. End of flashback. The next fight was the one between Gaara and Lee. He had thought Lee was fast, but when it seemed that Lee's taijutsu couldn't match Gaara's sand, Lee was told by Guy to remove his weights, and then things took a very interesting turn as the weights fell off. The very second the weights hit the floor and actually shook the building, he was able to see the genin go full throttle, and he knew just about everyone who saw this with the exception of Neji and Guy were surprised at how fast Lee was moving and hitting. Even Fenrix was impressed somewhat. The battle went to Gaara's corner and Lee unleashed his special skill and unlocked his chakra gates, and to the shock of him and everyone about, he tore the battleground like Swiss cheese in a grinder. But even that was not enough to keep Lee's foe down for the count. Gaara recovered and was more than ready to fight and was able to cripple Lee. The sight of Lee's body still standing before Gaara and Guy despite the fact his left arm and leg were broken was amazing. The guy was fighting in pure instinct and body memory, and Guy was very sad for this. And even Kakashi had to apologize to Guy for not showing Lee more credit, as he was very powerful to reach the 5 gates. All in all, after the matches, he was told that he and the others would have a month to get ready for the soon-to-come semi-final matches, and it was going to be something that he was looking forward to. He was eager to start his training so he won't be left behind. He hoped that Kakashi would be able to teach him, but Kakashi was on a special meeting with the Hokage and just about every other Jonin, Chunin, and even the clan heads. Despite the fact that he was not very interested in politics, he couldn't help but wonder what that meeting was all about. As he arrived, he was surprised to see a number of Anbu at his apartment, and there was none other than the Hokage himself, who seemed to be overseeing some sort of moving program. Naruto wanted to know what was going on and why were Anbu and the Hokage at his house of all things. Hey old man, what's going on here? The Hokage turned and replied. We need to have the apartment refurbished and rebuilt in order to make extra room for several other dignitaries. So this place is being rebuilt at this moment by several workers and it has to be cleaned and cleared out. Your furniture and other amenities are going to be stored in the Hokage Tower until then, Naruto. Naruto couldn't help but feel a bit shocked at the news. But where the heck am I going to live this time? I don't have enough money to buy a brand new home, old man. The Hokage however gave a sly smile and replied to Naruto's question. Valen had made special plans, remember? He had a home built for you in secret and it is now yours. Fenrix I believe knows more about it than I do, so it would be best that your guardian explain it to you. Valen made me a home? Where is it? Fenrix grinned. He had secretly visited the home that his master had prepared for Naruto nearly years before. Normally houses took weeks or months to make, but with the Dragon King, those houses would be done in mere days. But it was also very secret as no one in Konoha had any idea of its location or what was hidden deep beneath it. It was not a house in the standards of most humans, but something else entirely. As the two left, Sarutobi looked on and sighed as he looked back at the ninja who were busy packing up Naruto's supplies and gear for him to pick up later. He then thought back on how the discussion with the Jonin and Chunin went when he told them of the latest developments. Flashback. As soon as all the Jonin and Chunin were in the meeting hall and also the head of the clans in Konoha, as well as members of the council, he began the special meeting, not just concerning Orochimaru, but also the discovery and awakening of Naruto's Kekkei Genkai and naturally his moving out of his old home apartment and into his new clan house. Naturally a lot of the Jonin, Chunin and clan heads were quite surprised by the news that was given to them at the moment and they were still debating what to do with this kind of information. The same was true for Kakashi as he was still trying to get used to the idea that his Genin team not only had one Kekkei Genkai user, namely Sasuke, but another, who could manipulate wind in a way that even Asuma could not. Asuma was one of the few wind users in Konoha and thus was more knowledgeable of the use wind chakra. The clan heads were also interested and were eager to see this Kekkei Genkai of Naruto in action, though many of them were not all that convinced of its powers. As the meeting was adjourned, he told Kakashi to stay and turned as there was yet another guest who had remained in the shadow, and Kakashi knew already who it was. It's good to see you again, Jiraiya-sama. It's good to see you too, Kakashi. You've matured a lot since I last saw you, so, how is it dealing with Naruto? He's a handful, that much I can be certain. You know already that he is a clan head? Sarutobi-sensei told me. You realize that as soon as the news comes out, things for Naruto are going to get very interesting. I know, but what brings you back here, Jiraiya-sensei? I came here for mere research, but also to give my report. I know Orochimaru is here and the target is Sasuke. No surprise there, that Kekkei Genkai will seriously interest him with the ability to see and copy jutsus. So what sort of abilities does Naruto's Kekkei Genkai have? Sarutobi filled the two of them in and Jiraiya was grinning. I can't wait to see this in action. End of flashback. As he walked back to his home, the Hokage couldn't help but wonder just how Naruto would react to the sight of his new home. In another part of Konoha, the two dragon ascendants arrived in a massive valley a fair distance from Konoha, and as soon as they got there, Naruto was not able to see any buildings, and he looked at Fenrix, who just smiled. So where is this new home of mine, Fenrix-sensei? Allow me to show you. Fenrix made some gestures into Naruto's eyes. He saw a shimmering of light and then out of nowhere was a massive hill made of pure stone that had several unique patterns of rock and metal about it, and he could have sworn the patterns had a soft but very powerful glow at the moment, and there was something about this place that tugged at his senses. He watched as Fenrix touched a wall and the wall seemed to shimmer and there was a long tunnel there. As they walked through the tunnel, they went deeper into the earth, and finally they arrived at another door, and as soon as Fenrix touched the door and pointed for Naruto to do the same, the doors parted and in that moment, they were in the main hall. Naruto looked at the main hall of his new home, and was impressed to the point his eyes became saucers and his jaw dropped. He thought living underground meant that he was living in some sort of dank, smelly, dirty cave. Not this. The main hall looked like a mansion. In the middle was a beautiful foundation with cool clear water and statues made of pure marble that resembled dragons. There were benches made of solid marble as well which were covered in soft leather. Light was coming through several large openings and was distributed all over the halls by both water and apparently light-emitting crystals shaped like trees that glowed softly, giving the place a very soft but strong amount of light. There were underground streams that were moving through and were cool to the touch and to Naruto's amazement were drinkable. The walls were smooth and covered in small gems and inlaid with copper mirrors which appeared to be well polished, as well as silver and gold designs that made the place even more grandiose than before. And in the areas were healthy trees and bushes, giving out a sweet scent to the cave. The floors were made from tiles that combined marble, jade, and smooth limestone and were very strong. All in all, the main hall was impressive. Fenrix couldn't help but chuckle at the look of awe in his student's face as he gazed at the main hall of his brand new home. It was befitting someone who earned the favor of a dragon king as well as the new head of a clan in his mind. And it seemed the same for Naruto as he moved about and explored his new home's main hall. Naruto, we have yet to see the rest of your home, come on. Naruto nodded and the two of them approached two massive stone doors which had intricate designs, and Naruto pressed his hand on the doors as he found himself marveling at it. He was then surprised to see the intricate designs glow pale blue, and then the doors seemed to move and slide into the walls, and Fenrix spoke to his charge. The doors are at least 2 feet thick of specially enchanted limestone that are held in place by pure magic, and are only designed to open for the owner of this house, namely you. This applies to all the doors as well in this home of yours. Now let us take a good look at your home. The hallways were also lined with soft glowing crystals, and the gentle sounds of water flowing on small canals on the sides of the walls were rather soothing to the ears. On the sides were bowls that had pools of water in them, and when he tried some, the water was cool, enriching and fresh. In Naruto's mind, it was amazing. They arrived and opened another set of doors, and before Naruto was yet another hall, a lot larger than the main hall, but in it were beautiful statues made of jade and marble, as well as metal. There were stone tables in a semicircle there in the middle, as well as smaller tables in the sides and benches of stone which had soft leather there as well. There were 4 large crystal formations that were giving light into the main hall through filtering openings above. The walls were also smooth and supported by pillars of stone and metal which were also smooth and cool to the touch. And there were some trees and bushes which were very healthy and gave a soothing, refreshing smell like a fresh forest into the hall. There were chairs there on each table, with one being a little larger than the others as well. And there was a large open floor there as well. There was a massive staircase at the back with several stone doors there as well. On the right were also 2 sets of doors, and there was also another set of doors on the left. Naruto could only say a single word. Amazing. Yes, it is. This is the main dining and entertainment hall. This is where you can have your food and where to feed and entertain your guests as well. The first set of doors to the right lead to the food storage chamber where the food and drink are preserved for your use. The second set of doors lead to main kitchen where your food is prepared. Would you like to take a look at them? Oh yeah, I want to see the kitchens. Good, I figured you would like that. Come on. The kitchens were larger than his old apartment, and like the halls, they were very good, clean, well maintained, well lit, and there were kilns, roasting pits, piles of wood, coal, fuel and more. The kitchens also had all the things needed to staff a kitchen, such as condiments, dishes, utensils, cooking tools and more. Naruto was impressed greatly at the sight of the kitchen as it made his older kitchen look so small. The blonde genin looked the place over and he could see that there were some strange symbols on the place, and he touched them and the place came alive, and it was when Fenrix explained to Naruto how the kitchen worked. This place is run by natural energy drawn from the very heart of this world, and so it can take care of itself. The symbols you touched will activate this place. All you have to do is to make the dish, and when everything is in place, place it in the appropriate cooking device and then place your hand on the symbols and then use the power of your mind to project the dish and how it is made, and the cooking device will do the rest. This will also function like any moral kitchen if you want, and will for others who come here. Cool, isn't it? The storage place is similar to the shape of this kitchen, but as its name states, it stores food and ingredients and stores them in special containers that only stores massive quantities but can also retain the freshness of all food and drink items that are stored in them. So you can have enough food and drink to feed a large number of people here in great safety. This entire place is protected by the very energy of the world, and thus only one who wields the same kind of power can even break through the outer walls. The two left the kitchen and they went to the other side of the dining hall and entered one of the other doors, and they found themselves in a large room, and there were blowers, a massive fire pit, piles of wood and coal, bars of metal were there, as well as prongs, large hammers, and a set of anvils. On the other side where there was no danger of fire were books and scrolls in well-made shelves of stone and metal. There was even a table that had mortar and pestle, along with vials, powder bags and more. The place was also lit by crystals and had several open vents and a massive chimney on the area above the fire pit. Naruto then noted several molding stones in the area as well as working benches, and he couldn't help but wonder just what this place was at the moment, and Fenrix was the one who told him. This is your special creation hall. This place is part armory, part forge, part alchemist lab, and part library, so you don't need to have too many places to go to. Here you can learn many things on whatever subject interests you and where you can create weapons, armor and more if it helps, as well as potions and herbal mixtures. Why do I need armor? That is entirely your decision, Naruto, but keep in mind that you are still very much a hatchling when it comes to your ascendant heritage, so any form of protection will certainly be worth the time to learn, so do not think that you do not need some extra edges in combat should the need come to that. The books and scrolls also have information of the making of potions that can be highly effective for you and others, along with salves, oils, kits, and more using the native ingredients and secretly hidden ones that only those who are taught by dragons can find. Valen had been in your world long enough to know how to find the places that time and humanity had either forgotten or chose to forget, and he stored them here in this place. A dragon king's wisdom is worth 100 years worth of human knowledge. So do not take these books and scrolls lightly. Naruto nodded as he began to grasp the implications of what Fenrix was saying. They then left the creation hall and then entered a massive hall that was bare of all the other things he had seen in the other halls. There were only glowing crystals, vents, and several pools of cool spring water in the hall. The floor didn't have elegant tiles but soft flat earth, and the walls lacked the designs and more. Compared to the halls Naruto had seen, this place was very sparse and Spartan-like in design and form, but he could sense great amounts of power in the place. What is this place? This is the training hall. This is obviously where you can train using your powers and abilities, and as such, this hall is specially filled with hidden wards and symbols that reinforce it. And considering the fact that you will learn to use a variety of powers that will rely on your ascendant Kekkei Genkei, this place is going to be seeing a great deal of hard use soon enough. That is the reason why this place is specially reinforced, to make sure it does not collapse, so don't let the Spartan appearance fool you. We can come back here for your training later, as we still need to see the rest of your home, so let's move on for now. The two left the training hall and then they made their way to the staircase located in the back of the dining hall, and they were in a massive hallway that branched off to the sides, and they went to one of the hallways and found themselves before a smaller door, and when Naruto opened it, he found a well-furbished room with a soft bed with the framework made of stone and the mattress being very soft and comfortable, as well as the pillows and the lush covering. There was a well-polished silver mirror that reflected Naruto's face and form like glass. There was also a large drawer there made from wood, and there was another door that led to a room that had a pool of water that had a pair of gems on it. One was red and the other was deep blue, and there seemed to be something of a sprinkler on the wall that was overhead near it as well. What is this place? This is a simple guest room. The gems on this pool will allow the user to condition the water to be either hot or cold and adapting to human needs, and the sprinkler acts as a shower of sorts. This place has at least 60 of these rooms in this area, simple and functional, but comfortable. How does air get in here? The air is regulated by both the plants that are sustained here and drawn in by mystical means, so this entire compound is routinely supplied with air, so there is no danger of anyone suffering asphyxiation. The same goes for these rooms, and the air is able to be regulated to be comfortably cool or warm depending on the desires of the person residing in the room. Let's move on to your room. I think you might find that place a lot more to your interest. Naruto and Fenrix moved to the hallway and they headed for the large double doors, and when those parted, Naruto looked at his own room in wonder, as this room was something else entirely. It was spacious and the bed was large, not large in the sense that it was taking up the whole room, but it was a lot larger than his old bed. The place was well furbished, as there were closets made from well-carved and conditioned wood. There were also chairs there and a trio of silver mirrors, and when he saw his personal bathroom, it was very well made. A large pool there for him to swim in, and the water was clean and clear. And there were two gems there, one red, and the other deep blue. There was also a small pool there, and both were fed by a spring of water that was still flowing. There were glowing crystals there as well. So how do you find your new home, Naruto? It's amazing, to think that this is now my own home and Valen made it for me. It's just amazing. This entire compound is the result of Master Valen's preparations for you to awaken to your powers. The reason your powers really took so long to awaken was due to your demon resident. Really? The Kyuubi did something to block my ascendant blood? That is correct, it had somehow restrained your powers, but it was not going to have an easy time of it, and when that grass genin struck you, he had inadvertently broke the Kyuubi's hold on Valen's blood, and now you know the result. If he only knew that his plan to disable you has made you stronger, the look on his face would be priceless. Now come, we need to begin your training as soon as possible. In the training hall, Naruto was in the training hall, and as they spared with one another, Naruto learned that Fenrix was not kidding, that he was a lot better than him, as his movements were fluid, precise, and accurate, and his hits were certainly painful, and the blonde realized that if he had fought Fenrix as a normal person, he would have been asking for quite a beating indeed. They threw punches at one another and kicks as well, and Naruto did his best to hit his ascendant mentor, but Fenrix was no easy mark. Come on Naruto, move faster. I am moving normally here, use your speed and power at once. The training was very difficult, and despite his stamina and agility, Naruto was quick to run out of breath, and Fenrix knew it. But he pushed Naruto on, and it was there that Naruto got more serious and pushed himself further, showing his dedication and determination. Much to Fenrix's approval of the situation, the more effort Naruto placed on his training, the better he would become, as well as developing the needed control to fully master his still growing powers. As the two continued to spar, Naruto finally felt his legs give way, but Fenrix caught him and spoke to his student. You did well, now let's get a drink. The senior dragon ascendant helped Naruto reach one of the pools, and when Naruto took a drink, the water tasted delicious and made him recover his strength, and with a nod from Fenrix, who then got the blonde genin and dragon ascendant to his feet, and he began to explain to him some things. Do you recall what you did during the preliminaries of the Chunin exams? Yes, what about that time? Well, if you are not familiar with the 5 elemental forms of chakra, I'll repeat for you. There are 5 elemental chakras in your world: fire element chakra, wind element chakra, water element chakra, earth element chakra, and lightning element chakra. Now each of them has a corresponding level of strength and weakness. Fire can beat wind, as wind is weaker than fire and only helps make fire stronger. Wind however beats lightning, while lightning defeats earth. Earth then defeats water, and water naturally defeats fire. Okay, but why are you telling me this? The reason is that this is for the use of ninjutsu, but as an ascendant, you have a tie to the natural world which has not been seen here for millennia, and as far as I know, most ninja have 1 or 2 elemental affinities. In the case of what I have seen on Kakashi, he has the lightning element, and for Sasuke, he command fire, which is obvious as the Uchiha clan are known for fire techniques. And while you have your own elemental affinity to discover, your ascendant powers are able to draw energy from the very fabric of the elements and the earth itself. As such, you have a gift that many ninja will not easily see. Let me show you just what I mean by that statement. Fenrix focused his powers slightly and his tattoos came to life, and to Naruto's amazement, his tattoos resembled waves of flame or fire-like patterns and were colored fiery gold and red, and then Fenrix moved his fist to create a large aura of flame that covered his hands. So fire is your element? No, you are about to see what I mean. Naruto was stunned as Fenrix merely calmed himself, and his tattoos changed form into resembling lightning bolts and spheres that emitted lightning and color, and he began to manipulate the arcs of pure lightning before him in his hands, as his tattoos were glowing gold at the moment, and the senior dragon ascendant then moved the lighting to attack one of the nearby targets, reducing the tall pillar of wood into nothing but charred pieces, and Fenrix smiled at Naruto. Now you try it, summon your powers and say the word lightning. Naruto calmed himself and focused his powers and spoke. Dragon King Blood, release, lightning. As soon as Naruto said that, his tattoos activated, and the tattoos took the symbols of lightning bolts and spheres, and were glowing golden at the moment, and as soon as the transformation was complete, he saw arcs of lightning moving on his hands, and he felt no pain as the lightning moved about on his arms and body. Wow! Fenrix nodded and explained patiently to Naruto just what was going on. As you can see, the technique you are using at the moment is what is called elemental manipulation. This is what a dragon ascendant is capable of with initial training, and he or she can use the technique to unleash torrents of fire at their foes, create earth shields for defense, unleash boulders at larger targets, fire currents of pure lightning through the ground and in the air, fire waves of water at their foes, unleash funnels of wind to send their opponents flying, and more. Cool, you're going to teach me all that? When do we start? Not so fast, hatchling. First, there are some basic rules you need to both know and follow before you try this exercise. What are those? First, these abilities require that you practice how to shift elements when in a combat situation. Using the right element in the right moment can be critical. In simple terms, using the right weapon for the right battle. The second is that you need to develop control. At the moment you still need to say the words in order to effect the shift. A fully trained ascendant can shift the elements merely by thinking about the shift and what element they wish to use when the battlefield changes. Allow me to show you what I mean exactly by that. Fenrix then began to show Naruto just what he meant as the tattoos merely shifted into a new style of appearance and color, and he was now manipulation a column of earth that rose from the ground in the training hall, much to the awe of the blonde ninja and dragon ascendant. And then he raised 2 more pillars, and then he shifted the tattoos once more, and he then unleashed a massive number of fireballs from his hands that blew the first pillar into chunks, and then the other one was hit by a massive wave of water. Fenrix then leapt into the air as his tattoos changed to match Naruto's tattoos in the fight with the Rain Genin, and he delivered a powerful diving kick to the pillar he was standing on earlier with the wind on his feet, allowing him to slice through the pillar and land before Naruto, who was utterly impressed with what he had seen at this moment and time. Wow, that was awesome. Fenrix nodded and then replied. True, but this is using each element separately. When fully trained in mastering each element without relying on words, then a fully trained and mature dragon ascendant can control all 5 elements at once and use them for both attack and defense. You're kidding. Fenrix smiled back, and then he focused his tattoos, and then they took the color of the 5 different elements, and in a moment, Naruto was surprised to see a ring of fire moving around Fenrix, which was joined by arcs of lightning, a sphere of air surrounded by floating chunks of earth, and a ring of pure water. All 5 elements at once. Fenrix then revealed the power of the technique as he unleashed a combined stream of wind and fire at the very same time and destroyed a nearby pillar of earth in a heartbeat. He then unleashed water and lighting in a combined strike, with water going first, hitting the other targets with the power of a tsunami, and then the lighting took its turn and was amplified in power by water. Massive pillars of lightning were seen by Naruto hitting the other targets, and they were obliterated instantly. Fenrix then unleashed a massive wave of stone to bombard the other target, and then combined earth and wind to convert the earth into sand that was blinding, replicating the very way Gaara fought as well, much to Naruto's amazement. Naruto was awed, and when Fenrix finished using the transformation in the 5 elemental combination, Naruto was eager to learn. Can you teach me that? Please. Fenrix couldn't help but laugh a bit at the expression on Naruto's face, and he knew that while he couldn't teach Naruto that style of combat just yet, as that style of elemental manipulation require years of training, if not decades or centuries. Not until you master the basics of all 5 elements, as you need to do that before you can be able to use the 5 elements together in unison. What I showed you is but a demonstration, and therefore this style of combat is a lot more powerful than even you can imagine at the moment. Now that you have an idea of the kind of training that you are about to undergo, you need to get ready as best you can. You have at least a month to prepare. Naruto, however, was not deterred and replied, I'll master as best I can, don't you worry about that. Fenrix grinned and decided that for the time being he would tell him about being the head of his own clan. He was familiar with the needs of starting a clan and what were the rules and more. He also had to explain some important things about Naruto's ascendant heritage that was very important and was for his ears alone at the moment. It would soon be revealed to the rest of the Konoha Council, though the dragon ascendant knew for a fact that the very second they heard about this, Naruto was going to be for a lot more than he could possibly handle. But then again, his student was not the kind to be bothered by odds all that much, and that was fine by him. Before we get down to training, I suggest we take the time to talk about your new role as head of your own clan. There are some important considerations that you must know so you are better prepared for it. The last thing you need is to be caught doing something indecent which will not only embarrass you but also put your clan in a very bad light. Alright then, tell me. First off is the matter of clan numbers. Since you are the very first of your clan, then you will need others to make up your clan. There are 2 ways this can be done. You can adopt others into your ranks, or you can have a wife and have children who will be recognized as clan members. A wife? I need to have a wife? Of course, Naruto, a clan can't survive without the head of the clan having heirs to it, you know. But due to the fact that your clan is relatively new to the scene, I believe an old rule is to be used in allowing your clan to grow, and that is polygamy. And before you ask, that word means that you can have more than one wife. Naruto's jaw dropped at that statement. Having one wife to him was surprising enough, but more than one wife. You can't be serious? I'm afraid so. There are instances of this happening as clans which are new have to have many blood-related members to ensure that the clan's Kekkei Genkai will remain with them, and also to ensure that if there are wars, there will be enough of them to fight and survive at the end of the war. This also ensures that the clan has heirs to take the place of their head leader should anything happen to the leader. Having more than one wife can also help improve not just the already existing Kekkei Genkai, but introduce new abilities that could strengthen the clan. Take for example this situation. Suppose you have a child with one of your wives who has exceptional control over the element of water. The result is that any children born of that union would have a greater affinity for that type of element, thus improving the power of the clan. And considering the fact that your Kekkei Genkai is pure, it works both ways. The child will not only have your powers, but the traits of your wife will be enhanced by your own powers. You mean, if they have a Kekkei Genkai, then my ascendant blood can make it stronger? Yes, it might also unlock portions of the power that was once thought lost. Take for example, the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. At the moment, the Byakugan is powerful, but in its pure and undegraded form, the range was much better and it would eliminate the little-known blind spot that exists there. And it could go a step further by being able to see beyond the physical and see the spiritual and emotional. Now let's suppose that you have a wife from the Hyuga clan, who would naturally be Hinata Hyuga herself as she is the heiress to the clan. Naruto blushed bright red at the thought of Hinata being his wife, though why he had no idea at the moment, but despite his face resembling a tomato at the moment, he nodded to Fenrix to go on with his example. If she is your wife, then not only will she gain the title of it, but her Byakugan can actually improve a great deal and be much stronger due to your performance of your duties as her husband. But the child you both will have not just a much stronger Byakugan, but your basic ascendant powers and even the use of some higher aspects of your abilities. Are you getting me so far? Yeah, I am, but this is kind of sudden. I understand that. Another reason why you can have more than one wife is not just for the mentioned purposes, but it will also cement alliances with other families, as the children born from you and your wives from their families will be part of their own as well. This is where some delicacy is important, so try to be patient, as some clans might become pushy. As your Kekkei Genkai is quite powerful, there will be those who will try to do their best to have their daughters be married into your clan. Knowing how to handle these situations with tact and diplomacy will not be easy, but it can be done. Okay, but there is something that I can't help but think about. That being? My age. I mean, I'm only 13, for crying out loud. I can't get married now. True, but just because you are married by law, it does not mean you have to procreate instantly with your wife or wives in this case. Get to know them more, learn from them, and be able to see them for who they are as people. That way you are actually building up a good relationship with the people who are going to be part of your clan. Okay, but I am still 13. How can I be sure that I can even have kids? You can. Your body will hit a certain point in which it will have an accelerated growth spurt, so that means that while you are still 13, the growth spurt you will have soon will give you the body of an 18 or 19-year-old person, so you would be legally be able to have children. And your Dragon King blood has given you quite the advantage in terms of procreation than that of normal men. Huh? Have you taken education classes in the academy? Not really. I was always doing pranks and getting reprimanded to learn anything solid. I just know that men and women can have kids. Never mind, we'll reserve that set of lessons on male and female intimacy for another time. Now, as to what I said about you having an advantage over most men in the regards of procreation is in several ways. The first is that your sperm is capable of allowing women to be 100% capable of having children, meaning that even one drop is enough to guarantee that your wife or any of them your wives will have a child. No way. That is true, Naruto. I would not lie about that part. The second is that your wife's pregnancy cycle is a lot different than that of normal women. A human child is born as at least 9 months, but your child will be born in about half the time without any complications, so in simple terms, you can not only guarantee a full success rate when your wife or wives become pregnant, but your child can be born in the time frame of 4 months and 17.5 days. So in simple terms, your clan could produce quite the number of children in a short amount of time. The third is that since you have the stamina to last in a much longer time frame than most people, you can certainly give your wife or wives a night they will never forget. Naruto's nose bled out a fountain of blood at the news, while Fenrix was enjoying this at the moment. He couldn't blame Naruto for the reaction he had at the time, since such news was something one did not receive as everyday news. As soon as this news hit the streets of Konoha, he knew that things were going to get very hectic, and if it came out to the rest of the world at large, he knew that things were going to get very interesting. He then moved over to Naruto and nudged him with a smile on his face. "Hey, you're not married yet, so you can worry about that later, come on. We've got training to do." Naruto recovered and was able to get his act together and returned to training as they went through the prescribed exercises, and as time passed, Naruto was getting into the swing of things. Hours later, Naruto was once more tired and was eager to have some ramen, and they headed back up, and as they headed for Ichiraku ramen stand, Naruto was eager to finally put his training to the forefront of the month ahead. The next day, Naruto decided to visit the hospital to see how things were for Sasuke at the moment. It was then that he ran into Kakashi, who apparently had visited Sasuke before. The Jonin smiled at his student and spoke to him. "Hey there Naruto, you've been busy? You bet Kakashi-sensei, why are you here?" "I came here to check on Sasuke actually. He's still out of it, but the doctors said he's recovered well enough on his own at the moment." "That sounds alright. Say, can you teach me a new jutsu, please?" Kakashi shook his head and replied. "I don't think I can teach you at the moment. I know about your Kekai Genkai since the Hokage told me, so you need to train in that area first, and when you are ready, I can teach you a jutsu that you can use to your advantage. I might train Sasuke harder, but there are reasons for that, and you both have good potential." "Oh alright, but promise me that you are going to teach me someday." "Count on it. By the way, you want to pay a visit to Lee? I hear he's in one of the rooms." Naruto's face became sad at the thought of Rock Lee being the way he was at the moment and what Kakashi said about the dangers of Kinjutsu, or forbidden jutsu. He hoped that the tough and strong genin would recover soon and continue to be a ninja. "How is he?" "He'll live, but I don't know about his chances of being a ninja. Guy taught him well, there is no doubt in my mind about that, but for his chances, I just don't know." "But can't the medic nin do something?" Kakashi shook his head and replied. "They're skilled, but nowhere near that skilled. The only medic nin I know who can do the surgery needed to heal Lee would have to be Tsunade." "Tsunade? Who's that?" "One of the Sannin, or the legendary 3 ninja sages. She was the finest medic nin in the village of Konoha and was the granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage, and she had superhuman strength. She was strong enough to collapse a wall with one hit." "Wow, so where is she?" "She isn't here, and no Naruto. She's not a missing nin like Zabuza. Her case is different." "How different?" "I'm afraid I don't know all the details. The only one who would know would be her teammates." Naruto nodded and then bid farewell to Kakashi, and this allowed the Jonin to relax. Had he told Naruto the other reason for visiting Sasuke and training, he had no doubt the genin and new clan leader would have been royally angry. He had recently managed to stop Kabuto from killing Sasuke. The Leaf Ninja then revealed that he was a spy and a servant of Orochimaru as well, and was a highly skilled one to have killed all of the Anbu guards that Kakashi had requested to guard Sasuke. He noted that very well, and despite this, he did his best to convince Kabuto to leave. Kabuto was able to escape, using disguises and elaborate jutsus as well, fooling Kakashi with one of the dead Anbu used as a puppet with his clothes and face on while he had taken the disguise of the same slain Anbu and escaped. Kakashi could tell that despite Kabuto's age and youth, he was not someone to underestimate, so he himself would have to shape up and be stronger than before, and if Orochimaru had such talent at his side, things were not going to be easy. He however had no doubt that the very second Orochimaru and Kabuto find out about Naruto's hidden powers and Kekai Genkai, things for Naruto were going to get very interesting. For now however, he had work to do with Sasuke, as he, Jiraiya and the Hokage knew that they had to keep Sasuke's Sharingan from Orochimaru. As Naruto walked through the floors, he ran into none other than Shikamaru, who was carrying a fruit basket. "Hey Shikamaru." "Oh Naruto, what brings you out here?" "I was planning to visit Sasuke to see how the guy was doing, and also to see Lee. What are you doing here?" "Sending this fruit to Choji. He had one streak rib too many, if you catch my drift. It got so bad the nurse forbade him to eat anything solid for the next few days. And you know how Choji will react to that. Yeah, that is bad news to Choji. Anyway, it'll be a drag to be carrying this all day. Here, grab a bite." Naruto took an apple and quickly munched it as the two of them began to make their way to Lee's room after getting some directions. However, It was then that both ninja felt something bad in the air. Shikamaru and Naruto looked at one another and quickly moved to see what was going on, and as soon as they reached Lee's room, they saw just what was going on, as well as who was in the room with the still sleeping genin. Gaara, who was about to kill Lee with the desert coffin. Shikamaru moved quickly and bound the sand genin with his shadow manipulation Kekai Genkei, and Naruto moved and quickly hit Gaara right on the face. Ow! Hey Naruto! Don't hit him while I got him bound with my shadow, you just hit me. Sorry about that. Man, Naruto's got a hell of a right hook. If he had not pulled back, he would have broken not just this Gaara guy's jaw but mine too. The sand genin got up and looked at the two and focused on them as they saw that the genin was wearing his sand armor, but it was badly damaged at the moment. What the heck are you doing here in Lee's room, Gaara? Well met again, Naruto Uzumaki. I didn't expect you here. I am a bit disappointed I don't get to fight you in the finals. Now isn't the time for that and you know it. Why are you here? Hi there Choji, how are you doing? Ino asked as Choji smiled and saw both her and the fruit basket she had for him in her hands. Wow, a pretty girl with food. What a lucky break. Back in Lee's room. What are you doing here, Gaara? I won't ask again. Naruto wanted answers and wanted them now. He knew that he couldn't attack Gaara with any of his abilities due to the fact he'd injure Shikamaru as well, along with harming Lee, but he couldn't help but ask just what the heck was Gaara doing here in this room of all things. I was going to kill him. That naturally didn't set well with the two Konoha genin who glared at Gaara. That is, Naruto glared while Shikamaru kept his cool, but even so, he was not liking the situation for the moment. What? The simple and calm look of Gaara, which was mixed with a bloodthirstiness, was making Shikamaru nervous as he shook his head. This guy is one cold customer. He's not showing any reaction. Even if I have him tied down by my shadow jutsu, I have no doubt if he tries to attack us, I can't stop him too well. The only chance to defuse this is to bluff him. But why the hell would he want to kill Lee? You already beat him once in the preliminaries. Heck, you practically broke his leg and arm and he can't fight anymore, let alone defend himself, yet you want to kill him? Isn't what you did to him back there enough for you? Is this some personal grudge you have on Lee? I have nothing personal against him. There's no ulterior motive or complicated planning involved with me being here. I just want to kill him, nothing more. Naruto didn't like that in the least. You're insane, Gaara. I don't know why the heck you're like this, but right now I don't care, you really lost it. Yeah, Naruto's right. You honestly think we'll stand by and let you murder one of our fellow genin in his sleep and unable to fight back? You're one sick, selfish and twisted psychotic Gaara of the sand. If you both don't stay out of my way, then I'll kill the both of you as well. Naruto, however, glared and his tattoos began to show themselves and traces of chakra began to seep out, and he replied, I'd like to see you try it, Gaara. Whoa Naruto. Don't blow a gasket here. Look, we know you are tough and we were there when you crippled Lee with your sand, but we haven't unleashed our full abilities just yet, so we have the advantage. Really now? Yeah, what you've seen of my family's ability with shadows manipulation is just the icing on the cake. Besides, there's two of us here, so take my advice and leave here peacefully. Gaara, however, was not intimidated as he spoke back to Shikamaru. I'll say it again loud and clear, if you two get in my way, I'll kill you both right here and now. I don't need to wait until the tournament to kill you both. Damn, he's like ice, this is not going well. I'd like to see you try, Gaara. Damn it Naruto. Keep that temper in ice for a single minute. This guy fights like a demon for Kami's sake. Naruto glared and replied, he can act and fight like a demon all he wants, but I happen to have the real deal right inside of me. I happen to have a demon in me as well, a real one, pure power as well, and you do not want to wake it up. What the hell are you yapping about now? Let me try to defuse this mess. What the whole point of getting him mad on us anyway? Gaara looked on as Naruto glared back, and he merely closed his eyes and spoke. A demon inside you, huh? Then my demon is as real as your own is. What the heck? My birth and my upbringing back in my village of sand was not something one would call either happy or normal. To make sure I would be born as the ultimate sand shinobi to ever be born from the land of wind, my father, the fourth Kage, used his ninjutsu on me, infusing my still unborn form with the power of a sand demon spirit. In doing so, a life was lost with my birth, my mother's life. I was literally born as a monster in human form. Naruto looked on with shock at that as he realized that there was something in Gaara's tone that told him that this was the truth, and it resonated with him, because it was the same as his own life. Shikamaru was also shocked and Gaara carried on. The name of that demon that melded with me was Shukaku, the living reincarnation of a former sand priest who died and became evil and was sealed in an old tea kettle. Shikamaru recovered and spoke. A demon-based jutsu, but to use it on a baby, before it was ever born? That is one creepy thought. Your father must love you well enough to give you that power. Can it be true? Can he really have a demon inside him, like I do? Gaara never showed emotion, but Naruto could tell that there was one emotion in Gaara: hatred. Love? You speak of love? Don't think I can be measured in your standards. It's not love I feel for my family, neither is it respect or any of those feelings you people have. The only emotional ties I have for them is hate. I hate my family. I hate them all to my very core. The only thing I ever wanted was to wrap either my hands or the sand in my gourd around their necks and kill them slowly. Given life by the death of my mother, I was nurtured to be the salvation of the Sand Village. My father taught me all the secrets of the ninja at a young age, and I was treated well enough, pampered and protected and left to my own devices, and for a time, I thought it was love, but that was only the beginning of everything. What the heck are you talking about? What kind of trick are trying to pull this time, Gaara? When the 6 years passed, when I was 6 years old, my father tried to have me destroyed far more than I cared to remember. The way Gaara smiled and looked quite insane made Shikamaru and Naruto look in shock. Both, however, were not backing away. You just said your father pampered and protected you? Was that some sort of lie? It was no lie. Those who get to be strong get to be feared, and I was feared by everyone in the village. The same jutsu that was used to infuse Shukaku in me had imbalanced my mind in some way. Even the most foolish of my village realized that I was emotionally unstable. My father, the case cage, created me as his ultimate weapon in battle, but even he saw that I was too dangerous and I became a threat to the very village I was meant to protect and save from disarray. When I was 6, I became a figure of terror to everyone, and in their eyes, I was nothing more than a relic of the past they wanted gone. I was a living monument to their sins that they wanted destroyed. And that meant I had failed the purpose for which I was given life utterly. So I asked myself, what was left for me to exist in this wretched world? What was the point of living now? For living and having no goal is the same as being a dead corpse. But then I realized that everything has a purpose and a goal to stay alive in this world. What is this lunatic freak talking about? Naruto remained silent and thought to himself. I know what he means, I know what he feels, because I was like him too. Him and I are no different from one another. We are both demon containers. Then I found the answer. My reason to stay alive was in the killing of all those who are my targets. Since it was my mother's death that gave me life, then it is in the death of ours that gave me purpose. I lived in fear of those sent to kill me, but now I do not fear death, and I have killed many would-be assassins sent by my father in the years. I learned that I truly lived when I fought and lived only for myself, and I loved myself. I have no need for others, and also long as there are those alive for me to kill, then I will find some peace and happiness in this overcrowded, wide and wretched world. I will live here for all eternity. This guy has lost his mind. He's not human at all, but a freakish monster. I was alone like him. I had no idea why I was alive, until Iruka-sensei came, and then saw me for me, not for the Kyuubi. He gave me a reason for living. Then I met the old man, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura-chan, and even Sasuke. But Gaara, he had no one, and those who could have helped him turned on him. He had to find his reason to stay living on his own. But he came up with this. To kill in order to live. Could I have become like him if it hadn't been for Iruka-sensei being there? Could I have been like Gaara too? We're so different, but we're close to being the same. We're literally brothers in a sense. Naruto. Damn it all, not now. This is a drag. The reason for that was the sand suddenly came to life, and despite Gaara being pinned down by Shikamaru's jutsu, the sand came right at them as Naruto was frozen stiff by what he heard and how much the same he and Gaara were. Gaara was about to attack, but it was then that Guy arrived on the scene, and so did Fenrix, and Fenrix had a blade of pure fire aimed at Gaara's throat, and with one pull, the dragon ascendant could have easily sliced Gaara's head off. I suggest you lay off with your antics, Gaara of the Sand. Harm anyone here, including my charge, I will slice your head clean off. Gaara looked at Fenrix, but even though he was emotionless, he mentally took a step back as he saw the dragon-like eyes that stared back at him. Gaara left as pain hit him as Guy told them to wait for the finals, and he turned to speak to them. All the same, I am going to kill you. I will kill you all." As Naruto left with Fenrix and headed back to the fortress home of his, the senior dragon ascendant spoke to his student. "I heard everything, but before you get any ideas, I think that you already have people who care for you. Sakura, Iruka, and Kakashi, Master Valen, the Hokage, and maybe even Sasuke. They are the people who gave you the chance to walk away from your personal hell. Gaara didn't have that, and look at him. Those people are important to you, Naruto, am I right?" "Yes, they are. So you must fight for them, for their sake, not for yourself. Remember the things you've learned, and remember what Haku said to you." Naruto remembered quickly what Haku said about how people gained true strength by fighting for others, and that steeled him to train even harder. If ever he would face Gaara, he would not hesitate to fight him with all he got at this moment and time. "Elsewhere? Where have you been, Gaara? We've been looking for you." Kankuro asked his youngest brother when he showed up, just as they were getting a very bad feeling about what was going to happen if he was out of sight, but he was back and seemed to be no worse for wear. "None of your business." Kankuro sighed and kept his cool, knowing that no matter how angry he would get, he was no match for Gaara. Tamari sighed as she looked at both her brothers and wondered how it had come to this. They were here not to truly win the Chunin exams, but to help the Sound defeat and crush Konoha, the village that they were allied with, and so many died for this peace. The situation was so wrong to her, but there was reasons as well. The feudal lord of Wind Country ordered military cutbacks, forcing her village to downsize their forces and lose a lot of missions that could truly help them in many ways, and matters that should be in the hands of her village were handed to the people in Konoha, and that made them weaker in power and influence. That was the reason why Gaara was born as well. They had to go for quality shinobi instead of quantity. But now they were going back into war, under the order of her father, and the outcome. Tamari sighed as she looked out the window. Things were going to be very bad news now. Days later, the village of Konoha was currently getting ready for the coming second half of the Chunin exams. And it seemed that things were well on their way to getting very loud and entertaining at the moment. However, there were some new things that were being discussed in hushed tones by the villagers, namely concerning a certain blonde genin who had just discovered his own Kekkei Genkei. Many of the villagers were making rude comments and saying that stuff was just garbage and there was no way a guy like Naruto would have a Kekkei Genkei. The villagers, however, were getting rather curious on how the soon-to-come matches would turn out. Many talked about the coming match between Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara of the Sand. To them, that was the kind of fight they were looking forward to, not the fight of the blonde genin, and many of those who were against Naruto thought that he would be beaten down. They had no idea how wrong they were. Naruto was busy training long and hard deep within his underground fortress-like residence, as he was being taught by not just Fenrix, but by Jiraiya as well. The meeting between the Sannin and the blonde ninja did not go well at first, but they were getting along well enough as Jiraiya and Fenrix had a respect for one another. And much to Naruto's shock and surprise, his mentor Fenrix, like Kakashi, was fan of the Icha novels. All throughout his training, he was unaware that while his blood had finally adapted to the powers, his body had not. Fenrix knew this and trained Naruto hard, as he knew that Naruto's growth spurt was already taking effect as he was growing taller and stronger than before, as his body was being magically adjusted to suit his powers. The changes included a loss of all baby fat and replaced with lean but rock-hard muscle, increase in height, and also his face began to change into that of a more mature and handsome person. Jiraiya noted that Naruto could have sworn that the pervy sage said something that sounded like he was going to be as handsome as his old man. He, however, was so focused on his training that he did not notice, and he was enjoying the training as he slowly but surely began to adapt to using not just wind, but fire, water, lightning, and earth. He knew that he was to give his all at the moment, and he couldn't wait to see what other lessons Jiraiya might give him. The pervy sage tested Naruto's use of the Kage Bushin and also his genjutsu, ninjutsu, and taijutsu skills, and despite his thoughts on the Sannin being a perverted old man, he was happy with the training. Jiraiya himself was interested in giving Naruto the contract of frog summoning, but waited for a better time to train him, as his new Kekkei Genkei had to develop first. At the end of the month, he would teach Naruto just how to summon toads, and he was looking forward to the results of this meeting between Gamabunta and Naruto. It was during his training that Naruto wished he could use the ultimate move of elemental manipulation. However, during an exercise with his Kage Bushin, the blonde had an idea on a new jutsu that he could incorporate into battle. The day of the semi-finals of the Chunin exams. As the crowds gathered and were now filling the area where the coming Chunin exams were going to start, Naruto left the compound of his home and was wearing a cloak with his new clan symbol. The 5 elements in dragon form surrounding the symbol of Konoha. He decided to pay a visit to the old training ground, ignoring some of the comments heading at his direction, namely sent by young women. As he arrived there, he was surprised to see none other than Hinata herself. He was not expecting her here, but he decided to call her attention. Hinata. Hinata turned and she blushed bright red as she found herself looking at a very handsome young man with deep blue eyes and deep blonde hair that resembled the color of gold, wheat and the sun itself. She felt her heart race and wondered just who was before her. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" "It's me, Naruto." "Naruto? Is that you?" "Yep, but it can't be, I mean? Why? Do I look ugly or something?" "No, but you look so handsome, I thought you." Hinata blushed to the point that her face was bright red as she realized just what she had just said, but she could not help herself as Naruto looked so handsome that she felt like he was a god in human form at this moment and time. "Hey, thanks, I don't look at a mirror all that much, but if you say so, then it's true." "So, how are you feeling? You know, back then I always thought of you as..." "What? Please, tell me what you thought of me, Naruto-kun. I must not faint. I have to know." Hinata felt her heart race at the expectation of what she had long waited for Naruto to say to her. She wanted to know that you were a weird, timid and odd girl. Hinata felt downcast and wondered if her shyness had finally caught up with her, and she wondered if this was what Naruto truly thought of her, and she felt even sadder. However, her thoughts of sadness disappeared as Naruto spoke. "But now I see you as a kind, strong-hearted, brave, and talented person, and I happen to like that a lot. I like people who are like that, and seeing you fight was impressive. No matter what anyone says, you will grow up to be a great ninja someday. Don't lose faith and keep it up, Hinata." Hinata blushed bright red at the praise and her sadness vanished as she could see that Naruto meant every word to her. Thank you Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled. "No problem, see you at the finals, Hinata." As Naruto left, Hinata was still blushing as she twiddled her fingers and felt her heart race and her feelings swelled. "He said it. Naruto-kun likes me." As he made his way to the building, he was able to enter despite some problems at the entrance due to the Chunin there who guarded the doors. As soon as he proved that he was Naruto, he made his way in and was greeted by Fenrix and Jiraiya, who were eager to see this fight and show his newly created special ability. As soon as he entered the ring, he removed his cloak and was dressed in black pants, with orange stripes, and wore a simple black and orange striped shirt and vest with the same clan symbol at the back. He ignored the stares, including the one from Tamari, and focused on the soon-to-come fight. In the ring, as the two faced once another, Naruto was more than eager for the soon-to-come fight. He was going to make sure that by the end of this round, he was going to beat the holy hell out of Neji and give him the beating he deserves for looking down on people's dreams and aspirations to be better and stronger, as well as proving to others that they were going to able to make themselves into stronger and better people. The crowds were expecting this fight to be easy for Neji, and then they could actually see Gaara and Sasuke face off once Naruto was defeated. Some admired the fact that he got this far, but they felt that he was going to be easily defeated by Neji. While many of the women were surprised at how handsome Naruto was at the moment, even Sakura and Ino were impressed. Naruto was focused in the battle and was now ready to give Neji the sound beating he deserved for his words, but for the moment, he wanted to see just what Neji was capable of unleashing with the Byakugan and the gentle fist at the moment, so for now, he was going to let the people think that this fight was going to be simple. He, however, was not going to let Neji think he was going to have this fight in the bag just yet. Neji, however, was not that confident. Despite his calm stance at the moment, he was cautious in attacking Naruto directly, as Naruto's abilities were making him a deadly foe at the moment. "Begin." The moment the Jonin Proctor Genma said that, Naruto quickly attacked with several kunai. One Neji caught and used that to block the incoming attacks. But Naruto was quick to attack and unleashed several fast punches, and while Neji evaded them and used his Byakugan to attack Naruto. However, Naruto was quick on the uptake and quickly moved out of the way and launched a powerful spinning kick at the side, and Neji managed to block the attack. But Naruto was not going to let him get away so easily just yet, as he quickly recovered and leapt over Neji, and as he landed he turned and launched out a swipe kick that Neji leapt over. Naruto, however, followed up with a reverse spinning back kick that hit Neji in the stomach, making the Hyuga clan member realize that while Naruto was not using his full power, even so he was not someone he could afford to take lightly. The two engaged in several hand-to-hand combat attacks, and while Neji tried to use his gentle fist, Naruto was not going to make it the least bit easy for Neji to score a direct hit at the moment. The fight proved to be a winning one, and the crowds watched as Neji and Naruto were fighting their best in the moment before them. For every kick Naruto unleashed as well as every punch, Neji was able to counter, but even then, the speed and power of Naruto's attacks were very good as Neji had to strain his Byakugan to the limits to even things up at the moment. His attacks were getting better, but Naruto countered with quick and effective movements using his hands and arms to block Neji's attack and also his legs to block in effect Neji's kicks. Naruto unleashed several kunai and shuriken that Neji easily evaded, and the two attacked once more and Neji threw several kicks at Naruto. But Naruto leapt away and did a spinning backhand upside down that Neji managed to block, and he attacked with a back kick that Naruto blocked in retaliation, and when he landed, the blonde genin launched a powerful series of kicks at Neji, who blocked as best he could. Not bad, even when not using his powers, he is more than capable of fighting. This fight is going to be a lot longer than I thought, but since he is not using that power, I can beat him with those jutsu. You might have trained long and hard, Naruto, and I respect that. But fate cannot be changed. I will win this fight because destiny is on my side. As the two separated, Neji attacked with his gentle fist and managed to hit Naruto, but Naruto countered the attack by moving backward and grabbing Neji's hand and pulling backward and landing a powerful elbow into Neji's body, which Neji blocked with his other hand. Naruto countered with a powerful rising knee attack which hit Neji in the stomach. Neji, however, countered with several palm strikes that forced Naruto back. And this was when he made his move. Hakasho Kaden. Neji rotated his body and unleashed a powerful sphere that knocked Naruto back, and as soon as Naruto recovered, Neji was not going to finish as he attacked with yet another Hyuga clan special attack. Hiashi was impressed and saw how Neji was able to use such techniques that were never taught to him due to being a branch family member. His daughter Hanabi thought the very same thing, as well as her cousin was proving to be a lot better than she thought. But she too was impressed by Naruto's moves, but the second move seemed to guarantee Neji's victory. Hake Rokuhuion Sho. Naruto got hit so many times that it seemed that he was going to be knocked out, and Naruto moved down to his knees, and Neji couldn't help but be impressed at how Naruto fought. He had managed to pull out several hits and the two Hyuga clan moves, and now it seemed that he would win in the end. You fought well, Naruto-san, but you have lost. What makes you so sure? Accept it. I don't know why you didn't use that ability you showed before in the preliminaries, but now without your chakra, you can't use it at all. Fate is unchanging and losers cannot be able to change. That is the will of fate. Screw that fate and destiny crap. What makes you think that is all true anyway? You really want to know? Very well, take me for example. What are you talking about this time? Neji then removes the Konoha forehead protector, and there on his forehead was a seal in the shape of an X. Naruto looked at it as Neji spoke. I had this disgusting mark on me when I was merely 4 years old, and so did my father Hisashi since his own birth. My father was born after Hinata's own father Hiashi, and as clan laws dictated, he was relegated to be a member of the branch family. The Hyuga clan are of two parts, and the branch family's fate and destiny are to be the ones who would protect the main branch. I was unaware of it at first, until I saw how they treated my father and me. How we were always relegated to other tasks despite our own talents. This cursed seal was always used for those of the branch family who were always destined to be nothing more than shields for the main family. This seal was given to me by them on the day when Konoha and the Country of Lightning signed a valuable peace treaty after a war between them and an alliance. A celebration was held that day. The head ninja of the hidden village of the Cloud was Lightning Country's representative. The Hyuga were the only clan not present since it was Hinata's 3rd birthday, and the same day I was branded with this seal. Both my father and Hiashi were twins, and my father hated the main family and never respected them. On the day my uncle was training Hinata and he was able to best her, my father prepared to fight with Hinata to see how much she had grown. But Hiashi activated the seal on my father and my father suffered from it. The seal prevent members of the branch family from attacking the main by limiting their Byakugan and injuring their minds and bodies. Hiashi then told him to never defy his fate as a branch family member. That seal protected the Byakugan bloodline through death, for the seal only disappeared in death. One night, Hinata was kidnapped and Hiyashi was able to save her and kill the man responsible, and that man was the head ninja of Hidden Cloud. The Lightning Country then stated that Konoha violated the treaty and they demanded the lead of the Hyuga clan in exchange for the death of their head ninja. In time the relationship broke down and Konoha gave in to the demand of Lighting, but they didn't give Hiyashi. They gave my father Hizashi instead. They gave them my father because he was the second born and was fated to die in Hiyashi's place. Neji then placed back on the forehead protector and then glared at Naruto, who glared right back at him. The day my father died was the day I learned the truth of life, Naruto, and I know it to be true. The only truth is, there are those few who are predetermined to be great. I know your dreams of being Hokage. But you are not going to make it. Only those who are predestined can be Hokage. There's only true fate that binds all of us, and that's death. No one can escape that. And all because my father died as a member of the branch family of the Hyuga for the sake of the head family, as it was his destiny and fate as a branch family member. And now, your fate has been decided since you became my foe in this match. Hiyashi heard everything, and he knew just what it was that Neji spoke of. In his heart Neji still cursed and hated the main family. And he knew why Neji hated them. After all, they did agree to having Hizashi killed in his place. But there was far more to that than even Neji realized. He wanted to tell him the truth, but he doubted Neji would ever listen to him. He had every reason to not listen after all. Naruto, however, was not convinced and replied, "You can tell me that, but nothing will change the fact that I will not lose to you, and there is no such thing as a fate you cannot escape. At least I have the courage to fight and defy fate. What about you, Neji? Still too much a coward to face fate." At least Hinata and Lee had the courage to face and fight for what they dream for, unlike you who hides behind this crappy thought of fate being inescapable. Neji was getting very angry and made that very well known. You know nothing. No matter how hard you train and no matter how hard you dream for it, you can never gain it, because all people are born with an inescapable fate and destiny. Only those chosen by fate and destiny can ever be Hokage. And you know nothing about how it feels to carry a mark like this one on me for the rest of your life. I am cursed for all eternity and nothing can change that. Naruto, however, got up and to Neji's shock summoned his chakra once more. Spare me your idle prattle and garbage, Neji. Now that we're done playing around, we can get serious. How? You think I let you get those hits for the fun of it, Neji? I just wanted to see just what you were capable of doing with both the Byakugan and the Gentle Fist for real, and not that I know just what you were able to do. Now is the right time to get serious. Naruto got into a combat stance and then unleashed his special ability. Dragon King Blood. Release. Wind. Neji watched as the tattoos were finally showing themselves, and the sight of Naruto being surrounded by wind made him move back, and this got the crowd right by their pants. They had thought that Naruto was done for despite the amazing fight and spirit he displayed before, but now it seemed that the blonde ninja was about to show what he was about to do. And Naruto did not disappoint as he attacked with several powerful tunnels of wind and sent those slamming hard into Neji's defense and sent the boy away. Naruto did the same and Neji evaded the attack and charged at Naruto, intent on finishing the fight quickly, but if he thought he would be able to attack Naruto up close and attack with the Hake Rokuhuion show once more. He was wrong as Naruto beat him to the second. Naruto attacked at the same time but with an even greater speed, using the wind to propel him even faster to close in to attack Neji, and he struck with a simple kick. Neji blocked, but paid dearly for it as the wind appeared on Naruto's leg and sent him back with several tears on the clothes and some cuts on his skin, not enough to draw blood, but to hurt well enough. Naruto was far from done as he attacked with several blasts of wind and then moved in and launched a punch, and as Neji evaded and prepared to strike, Naruto quickly flipped over Neji and landed his own palm strikes into Neji's back and sent him to the ground. Neji turned and coughed a bit as he felt pain on his body at the moment and spoke to Naruto. You were baiting me the whole time. Naruto nodded and then spoke with confidence. Oh yes, I don't have to attack at long range all the time. As you have found out, my abilities also work well in close combat. Besides, Neji, what makes you think wind is the only element I can throw at you? What? Lightning. Neji could only watch as the tattoos on Naruto's body transformed and resembled spheres of lighting and lightning bolts, and Naruto's body was suddenly releasing lightning bolts all over himself. Naruto then raised his arm, and then to the shock of the people above, black lightning clouds appeared in the sky, and then a massive current of pure, Raw elemental lightning in lightning bolt form lanced down with a massive boom and landed on Naruto, without even harming him, and then with a pointing of two fingers, Naruto unleashed the bolt of lightning right at Neji. Neji managed to roll away, and he couldn't help but feel his nerves tingle and his skin seemed to be alive, as even though he had evaded the strike, the very air was filled with lightning even as the clouds above vanished as quickly as they came. Naruto decided to taunt Neji the same way he taunted Hinata to give him a taste of his own medicine. "You want to try that gentle fist of yours on me again, Neji? Let me show you just how bad an idea that is." Naruto did so, or he was covered in an aura of pure lightning like a suit of elemental armor, and he spoke once more. "If even one finger of yours touches me, I can hit you with enough lightning to either stun you or cook you alive. How do you plan on beating me? How can you do that? This is my Kekkai Genkai Neji. I can manipulate all 5 elements with equal skill, and apart from increased physical abilities, I have the ability to be nearly impossible to harm with blades, as you already know, but to drive this home, I am also given a higher resilience to injury and to paralysis and even illusion techniques. It means I am immune to genjutsu and even to a degree, your vaunted gentle fist, and you know why. Despite how effective it is, you're going to need greater physical strength to use it on me, and you don't have it. And that makes your chosen fighting style useless on me. But mine is more than a match for yours." Neji was stunned, and so was everyone else in the ring. Naruto, however, was not going to give up yet, as he attacked and dropped his lightning aura and attacked with his taijutsu and revealed another frightening aspect of his powers to Neji as his punch landed on Neji. As Neji was still unable to fight back, he screamed in shock as he was hit by bolts of lightning that quickly stunned him, and he was able to move back. "This is not good. He's able to stun me with just a single punch, and I can't attack him. I have to do something fast." Neji took out a kunai to give him some defense, but Naruto was quick to disable that idea as he focused his lightning into his right hand, and to Neji's surprise and that of everyone else, the lightning solidified into a sword of pure lightning, and with one strike, Naruto cut the kunai quite easily. However, the technique seemed to be imperfect as the lightning quickly dispersed as Naruto landed on the ground from his leap. The Hyuga member managed to keep his distance but was treated to yet another surprise as Naruto merely shouted another command. "Water." The tattoos on Naruto's body shifted once more at the command and resembled streams, rivers, and waves of blue color, and Naruto was now using water as spheres of liquid were there on his hands, and he then unleashed from the air itself a massive wave of pure water that slammed hard into Neji, drenching him and sending him flying. Neji barely got to his feet as Naruto attacked, and while Neji tried to use a sweep kick to knock Naruto down, the blonde ninja kicked upward, and Neji watched as a whip of pure hard water smacked him right in the face and sent him flying to the other side. He got up and looked to see Naruto smiling the whole time. Naruto was enjoying this fight greatly and planned to show off even more of his abilities in combat. He finally decided to unleash yet another element. Earth. Neji looked as Naruto's tattoos morphed once more to take the form of fissures, hills, mountains, and the brown-green color of earth, and then he moved away as Naruto unleashed several walls of pure earth from the ground with a mere gesture from his hands, and he sent the walls at Neji. Neji managed to evade the attacks, but he was not given a respite as Naruto attacked with and unleashed a powerful trio of waves made of earth to imbalance Neji, and he landed several kicks to Neji and knocked him back. Fire. Naruto's tattoos now resembled flame and was of a deeper red color, and he unleashed spinning whips of flame at Neji, and Neji got his leg burned a bit and he gritted at the pain and managed to roll away as Naruto unleashed several waves of fire by doing the same move as he had done with lightning and fired a trio of tongues of flame at Neji. Neji then realized that Naruto could only use one element at a time, and he calmed himself and tried to find a way to beat Naruto hard. But he was also cautious. He knew that he would have to find some way of hitting Naruto's body hard enough to use the signature Hake Rokuhui on show once more. In the crowd, "Damn, I hate to say it, but that was way cool," Kiba said, and Akamaru barked in agreement, while Hinata was utterly impressed by how things were turning out. "Naruto-kun, you are so amazing. That was, man, I never knew Naruto would get this good in a month." Sakura had to agree with Ino as the two looked on as Naruto was thrashing Neji around like a dog would maul a chew toy. "Neji is getting really hurt, man, this Naruto is really pouring it on." Tenten hated to admit this, but it seemed that Neji had picked a foe that his Byakugan and gentle fist was useless against, Seeing Naruto manipulate wind got her worried at first, but she knew Neji's special move could counter that. But when Naruto unleashed his power over lightning and now water, her thoughts began to change. Hiyashi could only look on in growing amazement as Naruto was busy pounding the very life out of Neji. Seeing Naruto stand up to the Hakesho Kaden and the Hake Rokuhuyan Sho without ill effect was surprising. But this was something else entirely. The Chunin were speaking rapidly to one another and the Jonin were also talking with one another as they saw the power Naruto was displaying at the moment. The villagers were also chatting but many were hooked at this fight at the moment. A masked Anbu couldn't help but look on at the sight before him. How the heck did he do that? Only the Nidaime was capable of using water jutsu without a water source. One of the Anbu said as he and his companions looked on. The captain however replied, "That was no water jutsu, he is using water differently. He did not use any hand seals and I think, no matter how crazy this sounds, he was able to pull water from the air itself." In the Hokage's viewing area, Sarutobi couldn't help but smile at the sight. Naruto had gone far even though he had only a month's worth of training. "Who is this young man?" Sarutobi turned to the case cage and replied. "Naruto Uzumaki, who has an amazing Kekai Genkai, and despite his tender age, is head of his own clan here in Konoha. You saw his new clan symbol of 5 dragons surrounding the Konoha symbol. He is relatively new in his powers, but he is growing. I have a feeling that he might even surpass all the noble families and their own Kekai Genkai." "I see. Naruto-kun, where did you get this power? You did not have this when you were in the forest and it is certainly not the Kyuubi's power. You are interesting." Naruto smiled as he finally revealed his special ace in the hole. He had been training in secret with this jutsu ever since he had discovered that the cage bushin he would normally make could also carry his powers and that meant that they could use his ability to change the elements that they were able to wield. He had thought it over and wondered if it could work. He had presented the idea to Fenrix and the senior dragon ascendant had to admit the move was very ingenious. And even the pervy sage Jiraiya was impressed by the move and said that what he had planned was taking the use of cage bushin to a whole new level. It had been a very hard run to master the style and how to properly use attacks that could work well in conjunction with what he had in mind. It had taken him weeks to master some basic maneuvers. "Here's my special trick, and this is what I have been training in when I use my Kekai Genkai. I hope you're ready for this. Cage Buishin no Jutsu." Naruto created several clones and there were now since there were 5 opponents before Neji in the ring. Neji wanted to know just what Naruto was up to at the moment and he decided to speak. "Cage bushin, despite that being a Jonin technique, that jutsu is no Kekai Genkai." Naruto was smirking however, he had been training with this for some time now and now was the time for him to keep his promise. "No, not on its own, but the cage bushin are my aids. I have yet to fully master the ability to manipulate the elements to the point I can use all 5 together, but with the cage bushin, I came up with the next best thing. Dragon King Blood. Release. Fire." One by one, each of the cage bushin spoke the same phrase, but instead of the same element that Naruto spoke, they spoke the other 4 elements. Dragon King Blood. Release. Wind. Dragon King Blood. Release. Earth. Dragon King Blood. Release. Water. Dragon King Blood. Release. Lighting. The 4 other cage bushin were quick to be covered with the tattoos but the 4 were armed with different tattoos and to the amazement of everyone in the ring and in the Hokage box, Naruto was now carrying a full burning flame in both hands and feet, while the other cage bushin were wielding either vortexes of wind, orbs of crackling lightning, flowing springs of water, and chunks of earth floating about. The gasps and comments on what they were seeing at the moment filled the whole ring as the people of Konoha, the dignitaries, ninjas, and the feudal lords. What they were seeing was utterly unheard of at the moment. Naruto and the other cage bushin grinned as they all looked at Neji who was looking the assembled force and he was stunned at that moment and the blonde genin replied with a very satisfied smile as he got into position. And the cage bushin did the same and as soon as the position was set, it resembled the elemental chakra table usually seen in the academy. Naruto who was currently using fire elemental manipulation was in the lead followed by the cage bushin using wind elemental manipulation. Then by the cage bushin using lightning elemental manipulation, who was then followed by the cage bushin using earth elemental manipulation, and lastly by the cage bushin using water elemental manipulation. Like what you see, this is my personally created elemental cage bushin formation jutsu. This is my personal jutsu and only I can do it. I said I was going to beat you, and now I intend to do just that. The five attacked Neji and Neji was quickly on the defensive and tried to fire a number of shuriken, but the cage bushin who controlled earth quickly raised his hands and out of nowhere came a massive wall of earth that blocked the shuriken and Neji looked up as the cage bushin using wind came from the wall of hardened earth and attacked him with a powerful pair of wind-in spheres that forced him to move away, but Neji had no time to respond when the earth wall suddenly surged forward like water and the pillar slammed right into him. Aoig! Neji used his arms to block but he was sent back as a flat pillar of earth slammed hard into him and forced him hack. Neji had no time to relax just yet as another cage bushin came right at him with a pair of shuriken and he was able to evade them, but before he could make an attack, this one revealed that it was the one who controlled water and he merely moved his hands and began unleashing whips of pure hard water and Neji tried to block, but the cage bushin was able to soften the water and it splashed into Neji. It was actually a trick and Neji got hit hard by the other water tendril which was hard and hit like a whip and sent him reeling. He barely had enough time before Naruto who still wielded fire was joined by the cage bushin who was controlling wind and the two then forced their hands forward and unleashed a combined blast of fire and wind and Neji quickly realized that he was facing serious danger as there was no way he could withstand a combined attack from both fire and wind as the massive vortex of fire and wind hit the area before him. The Hyuga branch member barely had time to breathe as he barely avoided a massive blast of pure lightning from his side as the lightning-wielding cage bushin unleashed powerful arcs of lighting from his arm at that moment. Even so, Neji did not get away scot-free. Before he could fully escape, the cage bushin leapt forward and in a spinning flip brought down a spinning back heel kick that was covered in pure lighting and Neji got hit hard on the side of his body and sent flying back. Neji gasped as he was covered in crippling lightning that stunned him considerably, but was not going to get a break as he was suddenly hit from the back and sent flying into the air as the earth cage bushin fired a pillar of solid earth from below Neji and sent him flying upward and then the Hyuga was unable to counter as Naruto came in with his fists and feet covered in flames and unleashed a powerful barrage of punches and kicks that hit Neji hard and following uppercut and sent the Hyuga flying once more. The water-wielding cage bushin came into play as he leapt upward and unleashed a massive wave of water that turned into a massive hand which grabbed Neji and swung him around the ring and then released him and sent Neji sliding on the earth and when he stopped, he coughed out some blood and he looked to see Naruto and all four of his element-wielding cage bushin moving in formation and he couldn't help but try to get to his feet. Naruto growled and spoke to Neji. So, had enough? Neji was not going to give up as he got back to his feet. He was not going to give up at all at the moment, however, Naruto was not the kind to let things go easily and he decided to take it up a notch and he nodded to all his cage bushin and then to Neji and everyone else's surprise. The earth-wielding cage bushin became fire. The fire-wielding Naruto now wielded water. The wind-wielding cage bushin became earth and the lighting-wielding cage bushin became wind. This effectively made Naruto and his cage bushin switch places and since Neji could not tell which was the real Naruto due to the cage bushin having the same chakra and making his ability to see even harder where was the real Naruto at the moment. Naruto however was not giving up yet as he shouted another command. Cage bushin no jutsu. Yet another group of cage bushin came on the scene. This time there were 10 of them and sure enough HT newly summoned cage bushin shouted the same Dragon King blood release command and they were quickly covered by the tattoos and using different elements. Neji now found himself surrounded by a much larger number of cage bushin at the moment and all of them were wielding a different element and were ready and eager for a fight. The Hyuga couldn't help but see himself surrounded by those cage bushin who were wielding fire, wind, water, earth and lightning. He didn't know what to do at this point in time and before he could do anything. All of them charged at him and he got ready to defend himself but before he could do so, 3 cage bushin wielding earth hit him with several earth-based attacks. The first included a flying wall of earth. The second several large chunks of earth powerful enough to crush bones and pulp flesh. And the other one was a number of earth tendrils. Neji managed to evade most of them but his injuries made his reaction time even slower as he was hit by a part of the wall and sent rolling back as the 3 wind-wielding cage bushin attacked in tandem and he was sent flying into the sky with a pillar of wind and Neji was thrashed about, left and right and then 3 cage bushin wielding water moved upward. being able to fly with the use of water to propel them upwards, and then all three unleashed a powerful wall of water that slammed hard into Neji and sent him down to the ground. Neji tried to get up as he was soaked in water, and as he did so, he looked up and got a full blow to the face with a lightning-covered uppercut and was only able to scream in pain as his body was stunned by the attack, and he saw two of the same lighting-wielding Kage Bushin making their move. One leapt over the shoulders of the one that gave him the uppercut and kicked him solidly in the chest and sent him flying back, and the third did the same and followed him in mid-flight and flipped in flight to deliver a powerful reverse heel kick covered in lightning that sent him crashing down to the ground once more. The crowd could only watch in shock while the other Jonin were very much surprised. Incredible, to be able to use all 5 elements without hand seals, not mention being able to shrug off that many injuries and hit with even greater force, speed, stamina, and recovery. I guess my father was not kidding when he said that Naruto's Kekkei Genkai was unique. Asuma said as he took a fresh cigarette and looked at the sight of Neji being beaten so easily at the moment. When the fight had started, it turned from a supposed one-sided battle into a powerful free-for-all fight that was impressive to the core as Naruto fought with a skill that was against the image of him being the class clown. As the fight grew more intense, it seemed that Neji had the chance when he used the special attack of the Hyuga main branch family, but Naruto not only survived it but shrugged off the effects without any damage and then used his Kekkei Genkai, and this was the result. I agree, this is certainly not the Naruto many of us knew back in the day. Kurenai replied as she gazed at the situation before her. Hinata would no doubt have been impressed as well in her mind as she looked at Naruto, who was standing defiant, surrounded by his Kage Bushin, who wielded the elements easily and were more than capable in inflicting massive damage and attacks on Neji at the moment. She was impressed by the way Naruto had fought with Neji and wondered just what sort of training had he been undergoing for the past month to be at this level of ability. This was on Kekkei Genkai that in her mind was proving to give even the noble Hyuga clan's Kekkei Genkai a beating. The other Chunin and Jonin were also impressed. At the rate this fight was turning out, Naruto was proving to be more than a match for Neji. If Neji attacked, he would be able to cut or hit Naruto hard enough due to the fact that Naruto's body is a lot harder than normal and was a lot stronger, and Naruto could use the elements as shields to protect himself in combat, further adding a high degree of ability for the blonde genin. His attacks were also deadly as since his Kekkei Genkai allowed him to control elements without hand seals and without harming him. This allowed him to use the elements to further increase his combat damage, and the results were obvious with some of Naruto's attacks on Neji, namely the ones where his arms and legs were covered in lightning, as attacks from that had a stunning effect on Neji's body as the energy sent his nerves on haywire, and even forced Neji to stop using the Byakugan. Hiashi himself was very much surprised by the results. Like all the clan heads, he had balked at the idea of Naruto being the head of his own clan, as such a thing has never happened before in so many years, and he too did not like Naruto all that much, as he too was familiar with Naruto's dark secret. Hiashi also knew of his daughter's long-time crush on Naruto for some time, as despite his attitude towards Hinata he did keep tabs on her. When he found out that she was attracted to Naruto, he was displeased but made no move to stop it, hearing as Hinata would train her best to get not just his approval, but Naruto's own approval and recognition as well. Now that he saw Naruto's Kekkei Genkai in action against Neji, he couldn't help but feel a bit threatened. This ability was totally unheard of. This Kekkei Genkai descended from the blood some mythical creature that supposedly visited their village and granted its power to Naruto and many of the clan heads and the ninja. Many of them thought of it as something that would be nothing more than a jutsu, but after all he had seen, this was different. Naruto wasted no time and quickly closed the distance, and so did all 14 of his Kage Bushin. Neji decided to take one last shot at defeating Naruto, but that was not going to work as all the Kage Bushin vanished instantly. What? Neji tried to react at that moment, but he was too late, as the real Naruto, who had secretly burrowed his way underground with the use of earth, making a 15th Kage Bushin to take his place, and had been able to evade the Byakugan, and as soon as he leapt out, he unleashed a powerful right hook that finally sent Neji flying, and then he flipped and attacked the reverse spinning heel kick that hit Neji right in the head, and that was enough to send Neji to the ground, hitting the ground with a bang as he coughed out blood. The real Naruto glared and was far from done as he lifted Neji by the neck, and he began to choke the Hyuga clan member and glared at him and ready to fist. You tried to kill Hinata with one strike. I think I should give you same experience to be fair, now die. Genma tried to move in but seeing how Naruto had easily demolished Neji, he was more cautious. Hiyashi looked on and felt worried as he was about to see Neji be killed. Neji couldn't help but feel that this was the end. But in truth, Naruto stopped his fist a mere inch from Neji's face and he pulled it back and spoke. Do you apologize? What? I said I was going to beat an apology out of you for those comments you aimed at Hinata and to those whose dreams you tried to talk down, and now that you can barely stand I suggest you give me the apology I asked for. Come on Neji, it's not that hard is it? Or are you too proud to say those words? Pride means nothing here, your life is my hands at this moment. How does it feel to know your life now hangs in the hand of one who used to be a failure? Naruto then released Neji and spoke to him as Neji to the ground. Do you know how many times I failed the graduation exams? Neji looked at Naruto who glared back at him and the blonde continued. I failed many times, and all because the one jutsu I couldn't master was the Bushin jutsu, weird isn't it? I am able to make as many Kage Bushin that I want but I couldn't even make one Bushin back in the academy. Let me tell you something Neji, you think I don't know what it means to carry a mark for the rest of your life? I do, I carry a burden that I have to live with for the rest of my days, but unlike you, I don't accept the fate handed down to me. Do you think you know the pain and grief of being cursed? You know nothing, you don't know what it feels like to know that every time you turn your back, people call you a monster, demon, idiot, and worse. You don't know how it feels to have them look at you as if they wished you were never even born. You have no idea how lonely, isolating, and depressing it feels to know that every day you have to go back home and be alone for the rest of your life. I had to live like that for 12 long years. You didn't have to, you're a Hyuga, one of the noble family even if you are one of the branch family. Everyone only has to hear your name and they look at you with respect and admiration, you were born with that talent and ability. You didn't have to claw and fight your way out of the dirt be where you are. You didn't have to try and fight to prove you are more than everyone thinks you to be. Not like me, or Lee, or even Hinata even if she is a Hyuga like you. The villagers were silent, even the ones would have spoken against Naruto were rendered dumb. They had thought this battle would have been simply a defeat for Naruto and would be quick as they were eager to see Sasuke Uchiha in combat but the titanic battle they had witnessed had changed their minds. They had thought that Naruto was going to be easily beaten by Neji, despite his supposed Kekkei Genkai, which they laughed at and called it nothing but a weakness before the Byakugan of the Hyuga. But now they were taking their words back, because not only did Naruto withstand and survive, but outright demolished Neji, who was last year, number 1 genin. Before my Kekkei Genkai awakened, I had few friends, and everyone treats me like dirt, like I am useless, like I am nothing but trash to be ignored. Not this time, I have made it here to this very reign, and now I have beaten you, the one who think fate cannot be changed. An old friend gave me a message and it taught me an important lesson. Fate is something that we make for ourselves. As long as I have the will to fight, the courage to stand, and to prove that I can break free from my chains, then fate or destiny is something I forge for myself. So don't you dare preach all that crap about destiny being set to me or anyone else because it's nothing but garbage. If one like me can be able to defy fate and destiny, stand tall and shake the very foundations of heaven itself, then what about you? Neji was silent as he saw a bird fly freely into the sky and he knew that he was defeated and spoke. I apologize. Good, now we're even. Genma could tell that Naruto was done and spoke to the crowd. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.